Testing. Testing. All right, just checking the timing system. Please ignore the signals. Thank you. If you have target faces to put up, please do so. Good morning, everyone.
Help if I have a target, I guess.
If you're here for the 8 o'clock line, please get your target face hung and your name tag hung. If you have forgotten your name tag or lost it, we'll have to just make do and make another one. The magic marker or whatever. We do have some materials at the information desk. Thank you. I just have a public service announcement to make. I just want to make the point that in this facility, men's rooms are for men and ladies' rooms are for ladies. So please be respectful of that. Appreciate that very much. Thank you. I just have a public service announcement to make. I just want to make the point that in this facility, men's rooms are for men and ladies' rooms are for ladies. So please be respectful of that. Appreciate that very much. Thank you. Okay, we have a few archers that are missing. We have an O. Reed, supposed to be on target 17. Excuse me, supposed to be on target 34C. We have a D. Miller, supposed to be on target 35B. And we have a Z. Fisher, who's supposed to be on target 39B. The divisions are youth open male. If anyone knows those people, please call them, text them, Facebook them, somehow make sure they're here. Thank you. We also need Scott Bills on 75A. Scott Bills with a B. We're missing somebody on 17B, M. Dowell, men's open class. $17D, M. Dowell. 17D, men's open. Okay, we got it. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. We are live at the Lancaster Classic at the Spooky Nook Sports Complex. My name is Chuck Cooley. I'm here live with Teresa Johnson. Welcome, Teresa. What do you think?
Thanks. Good morning, everybody. We are excited for a great day of archery. We have 1,093 competitors who shot qualifying arrows yesterday, and we're so excited for this head-to-head match play to light this place up today.
This is going to be pretty incredible. This Spooky Nook facility is the first time that we've been at this location, and they've really hit a home run here. Yesterday, they were able to run more than 450 archers on one line under one whistle. There's, I think, only one other tournament in the country that even comes close. Does Vegas even run that many on one line? Maybe in some of the upper rooms, but
I think so, but it was amazing to see how efficiently, archers there's so much positive feedback about how smoothly the lines ran and how quickly and efficiently things kept moving yesterday. There were no major delays. Everybody kept moving, and of course the dead center live scoring developed by archers did a fantastic job keeping everybody updated throughout the day on results, so it was very easy to follow the competition and see who was getting near the cut.
yeah, that's one of the things I noticed. I came in and I shot my line first thing in the morning, which was kind of cool because I could get it out of the way. I could put up a decent
We're
score,
missing M. Romero.
and then I could relax for the rest of the day,
please.
and I could walk around and
M.
watch
Romero,
the archers.
you know him?
They've got
Please
monitors
get it
all
back
over the
to
building so that you can watch the scoring, you can watch the placement to see where everybody is live right then and there. A couple of the restaurants out in the front of the building, they actually had big projector screens up on the walls so you could watch the live feed that they were putting out yesterday. It was really, really incredible. They've done another amazing job here with all the production and all the staffing and the entire crew from LAS.
Yeah, I was so impressive to see how they really turned archery into a spectator sport yesterday, and will continue to do this throughout the weekend. I mean, people who haven't watched archery before, aren't really 100% sure about it as a spectator event, I think can really see the difference here at the Classic, because you can really participate, whether you're an archer or a spectator, you can really enjoy this event.
Yeah, it does. It makes it really easy. And I know, this is some of the things we've talked about in the production meetings. We know that we've got people at home. We've got moms and dads and aunts and uncles and grandmas and grandpas and all sorts of friends and relatives that may not understand everything 100%, but they can sit and they can watch, and hopefully we can share some information with them that helps us share and excite people and let them understand what's going on with archery here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can hear Rob in the background, Rob Kaufhold from Lancaster Archery. There he is doing his morning announcements with everybody. What we're going to see here this morning, this is going to go really fast and really furious. Basically, if you've made the cut in your division, you're shooting right now. Except for, basically every single division is shooting right now. So they're gonna cut the field in half in just a matter of a few hours. This entire room will be cut down to just the medal matches. So in many of the divisions, so men's open pro and men's open. So men's open is basically your freestyle shooters and things like that. Those are the top 64 archers, and 32 of those shooters will advance after this round. Also, we have our Masters Open and our Youth Open Male and our men's recurve divisions. Teresa's going to be stepping in a lot on the recurve stuff to help cover me, because that's where my weakness is. That was the top, or what we call the 16 bracket. That's the top 32 archers. 16 of those will advance. Then also shooting now, we have Women's Open, Senior Open, Youth Open Female, Bow Hunter, and Barebow Recurve. That is the top 16 competitors, and that field will be cut to 8. And then around 9:15, we'll cut those fields in half again. So that's all the archers that we're going to be seeing this morning. What you're seeing on your screen right now, these are more than likely your men's open shooters. It's your freestyle shooters who aren't in the pro division, who are hoping to advance.
Yeah, it looks like just a minute ago we were on a match between Seth Trahan, and looks like a competitor of his in the Youth Open male division. And there we've got some of the older guys too. So you're going to see, I think, some variety in terms of age here in some of these different matches that we're looking at on camera.
Kendall Woody on your left, Chris Hacker there on your right. Both longtime 3D shooters, and actually Kendall is really heavy in the dot tournaments, or what we're looking at now. Kendall won Outdoor Nationals in Pennsylvania a couple of years ago against Jesse Broadwater. That's a shot at Chance Bobeth. Another perennial finalist in just about any tournament you go to, whether it be 3D or paper.
For so many years, I mean, remembering Chance, I remember shooting the Atlantic City Classic, right? How long ago was the Atlantic City shoot?
Oh my gosh, yeah, that was
the NFAA. That was
10,
years and years ago, and there was Chance, right? Dominating even then. So this is somebody who's really had a long track record of success. And you could see right next to him there Rio Wild, who has really just had a tremendous career, both domestically and internationally. He's had a tremendous amount of success on the World Cup and World Championship circuits for many, many years now, and definitely one of the most consistent, dominating shooters out there when you talk about international archery as well.
Yeah, both of those guys now making their living shooting arrows, and Chance, one of the early guys to do that. Rio comes from the Wild family. They're icons in our industry. Some of the ladies getting their arrows off. Now these first few ends that we're watching here, they're going to give them a few arrows to warm up, and then we'll go right into live scoring. Levi Morgan there, his wife Samantha. Nope, sorry, she had her head turned. I thought that was Samantha.
No,
is she
not
competing
Samantha.
this weekend?
It's interesting. I saw her yesterday watching Levi shooting with their son, and so I'm not sure if she's shooting or if she shot at a different qualification time.
Gotcha, yeah, I saw them both yesterday afternoon. I didn't know if she was able to get set up and ready to go.
But certainly both of them very active on the tournament circuit, and of course last year they started their OPA Invitational Summit, which was a huge success the first year. Chuck, were you at that event?
I did go to that event. The OPA was it's a 3D tournament. It's a mark yardage 3D tournament, and Levi wanted to bring an elevated version of 3D, and he did it here in Pennsylvania. Beautiful location they went to in their little hometown, and they really set up a world-class event. There was a lot of people there, and it was a good time. It rained, but even though the weather was bad, the event was amazing.
And that's the beauty of indoor archery, is here we are in temperature-controlled conditions. I think for people who have tried archery indoors and out, of course, archery is fun year-round. And if somebody, out there new is watching this broadcast and thinking, oh, I want to get into archery, but I'm not sure. The great thing is it's a year-round sport. You can do it indoors, outdoors. But these two disciplines, indoors and outdoors, are so different because you don't have wind. You don't have sunlight moving and clouds changing the lighting on your target. You don't have thunder and lightning and mud, right? And flies.
Exactly. This is everything's the same. It's flat ground. It's indoors. It's 20 yards. The only thing between you and the middle is your brain. And,
Absolutely.
It's probably the toughest challenge. Now, one of the things I really enjoy about the way that the Lancaster Classic has set things up is this event. Obviously you have your premier archers, you have your world-class archers. A moment ago there we had a shot of Crispin Duenas. Now, Crispin's a recurve archer, Olympic team member from Canada. I think he's been on 3 Olympic teams.
Yes.
Of course, your husband Butch is here. He's what, 5 Olympians?
Five Olympic teams, team gold in 96 and team bronze in 2000.
Right, and then Jake is here, Jake Kaminsky, Brady's here, so on the world stage, you've got a lot of the best guys in the world. I saw a bunch of the guys that were in Nîmes last weekend, which is in France. They're all here. So you've got all the top archers, all the upper echelon, the best of the best of the best. But that translates into all these other divisions. So, if you're a total beginner, if you're a young person, a senior, there's divisions here for you to shoot. You don't have to be the best in the world to be here. You can come and rub shoulders with them and shoot with them and have a great time, and it gives everybody an opportunity to experience tournament archery at whatever level they're at, whether that be beginner or seasoned professional.
Absolutely, and one of the great things about indoor archery is because it is 18 meters or 20 yards depending on the event that you're shooting. it's so beginner friendly. I spent many years coaching junior Olympic archery development programs, and we'd have beginner classes, and you'd have kids who just started shooting 18 meters, just started shooting full distance, and they'd try a tournament and love it. So
Yeah.
I think that the lesson, the takeaway here is that there's nothing scary about tournament archery. It's so much fun, and it's a great way to stay involved in the sport, develop your core group of friends and your archery family, as we call it.
Your road family.
Yeah, absolutely. And for many of these kids, just especially those who are local here to Pennsylvania, they've got such great tournament archery opportunities, and this is just one of them.
Yeah, these guys at Lancaster really, their goal is to really push archery for everybody, at every skill level, beginner to expert. And they offer that right here. And I think, this year we saw 1,100 archers sign up for this event. But I'm thinking next year they're probably going to add 400 or 500 shooters now that everybody's seen the place and they realize how fantastic it is here at Spooky Nook, that they're going to go home, tell their friends, and it's going to be even more amazing next year.
Yeah, this is absolutely a world-class event, and like you, having been to a lot of these top indoor events and seeing how this one is run and managed, everything from the video for the archers to instruct them on scoring and help them get familiar before they attended the event, to the great materials, the swag bag, everything that the archers received here, every aspect of this has been a world-class event.
Yeah, this particular facility, there's 2 restaurants here, and I've eaten at both, and they're amazing. There's a hotel right here in the building, and I know you're staying here, I'm staying here. The rooms are amazing. Honestly, I didn't look at the bill, so I don't know how expensive they are. But
very reasonably priced, and Chuck, to your point, lots of great restaurants in the area. A lot of friends were checking in at different restaurants on Facebook and reviewing on Yelp, and you're seeing all that social sharing, and they love what they're seeing. There's a cupcake restaurant downtown, and there are a bunch of different grills and bars and things like that. So lots of places to get good food.
Yeah, and lots of places to go, lots of things to see while you're here. And thankfully, the weather's beautiful this year.
Yes.
It's a little cool, but it's beautiful outside, so the travel was easy for everybody last year. As you know, we kind of had the blizzard of a lifetime, which we still had the event, but it definitely, hampered some experiences.
But this year, just fantastic weather. It's been, for January, it's actually been a little mild and really nice weather to drive in or fly in. We haven't heard any reports of people having major difficulties getting here.
No, it was easy for everybody. Well, you can see the look on some of these people's faces as they start to get these arrows down range and kind of break the ice a little bit. You can see the nerves on their faces. What have you been given any thought to any predictions for today? Who you think might be doing what?
I think it's not so much a prediction as it is. I think that the archers who can manage nerves really well are going to do the best. This is such a game of precision, and with indoor archery, it's such a compromise between aiming too much or too hard and executing your shot properly. And so I think one of the things we talk about a lot in archery from the coach's perspective when we're working especially with youth archers or up-and-coming competitive young adult archers is, how to manage the practice ends and what the purpose of the practice ends are for. So we saw some folks making faces a few minutes ago, and you have to wonder, have they had a couple tough shots in practice and they're thinking about the whole day in terms of those shots, or are they letting those shots go and just refocusing each time on executing a good shot? That's going to make the difference between hitting the 11 in this tournament and missing out to the sides because you're putting a little too much pressure on yourself.
Right. Now, in this tournament, if you weren't paying attention yesterday, so we use basically what a lot of people refer to as the Vegas face, 40-centimeter face. There's 3 individual spots that you're shooting at. The centermost ring, which we in most tournaments refer to as just the X, you actually get a bonus point for here, so we call it the 11. Then there's the 10 ring, and then the 9 ring, and that's the edge of the yellow. And then once you move into the red, you get the 8 and 7. And then if you hit the blue ring, that's a 6. So hopefully everybody is, trying to pound the middle out. And as I just glanced over at you, I looked over at this. I could see one of my young friends from up home, Marissa Harding. She's doing really, really well this weekend. She made the cut for her first time after 3 years. young girl, 13, 14 years old, really having a great time, and seeing if she's managing that well. There's Jessie Broadwater.
And actually what you just saw, which is interesting, so there was a piece of archery etiquette there, in case the folks at home are wondering why Jesse was still standing on the line when the guy next to him was finishing. So in archery, we try to give that courtesy to the archers next to us, that if you've finished your shot, but somebody next to you is at full draw, meaning they've got the bow all the way drawn back and they're aiming downrange, you try not to walk on or off the line next to them so that they're not perceiving you in their peripheral vision.
Right, yeah, you kind of don't want to distract that archer. Now, once we get into the head-to-heads, they'll be on an individual stage, so they actually don't walk off the line no matter what. But on the international stage, like in Nîmes, you see guys, now there's a good distance. There's maybe 5 or 7 yards in between them as they're shooting.
Yes.
And you'll see them walk off the line almost immediately after that third shot. I think some of that is gamesmanship. I think some of that is trying to keep themselves pumped in the moment. There's a little bit less of that courtesy when they're spread out. When they're shoulder to shoulder, they'll definitely stand there and give that other archer a break. You know, they want that guy to compete at their best.
Absolutely.
You know, you don't want to be at fault for, a guy missing.
No, I think we always want to, you always want to take the win because you were the best of two best shooters. You hear so many archers over the years, interviewing archers, they always say, you want to win when your competitor is performing at their best and you outmatch them. Yeah,
as much as these guys want to win, they don't want to win on a technicality. They don't want to win, if you're a NASCAR fan, you don't want to win under a caution because some guy had a problem. You want that guy to be absolutely killing it and know that you beat them.
Totally agree.
So everybody's downrange, checking out their targets now. You can see the whole stand of bows there. Right in the middle of the screen, you see our judging expert, Larry Wise.
And so for the viewers at home today, the judges or tournament officials are designated with a referee-style shirt with the black and white, and they are basically here to help the archers, have a fair and a positive experience here in competition.
Yeah, you and I both talked to Larry this morning, and we, I started a conversation with him to ask what his views were, because I think there's a misconception with a lot of archers and how they view referees or umpires or judges. And in this particular game, one of the things that he said that struck me is that it's his job to always protect the archer's score. So when they go down and they look at an arrow, I said, explain that to me, Larry. Tell me exactly how you instruct your judges. And he had a long meeting with all his judges out here the other night. And, they use a nice bright light so that they can see. And they give every arrow no less than 3 looks. No less than 3. And if any one of those 3 even remotely has the chance of catching the next highest scoring line, then they're going to give that score to the archer. Their job is to not take points away.
Right.
Their job is to try to make sure the archer gets every point they've earned.
And I think ensure the integrity of the event, right? So it goes back to what you were saying about how people never want to lose on a technicality. When the judge is out there doing his job, they're making sure that the integrity of the event is protected so that a win is a good win. And
a win
you can
is a
feel
solid
good
win.
about it.
Nobody can take it away.
Absolutely.
And I thought that was a great way that he presented that, that they want to protect the archer's score, which is good, and I think all archers should understand that those judges are trying to do their best to make sure that archer does their best.
And let's face it, those judges have a tough job. I mean, yesterday on our target, watching the judge come up to call one arrow, for the folks at home, the context around this is that, within the group, the archers disagreed on whether the arrow was an 8 or a 9. And so the correct thing to do is to call a judge and let the judge, make that determination. So the judge comes over with a lighted magnifying glass, and you could see him looking at that arrow from, 10 different angles, really trying to make sure that the arrow was indeed a 9 and that they weren't, unfairly knocking somebody out of today's eliminations, for example.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for the upper end, there's a lot of money on the line for these guys, so they want to make sure they're giving them their full due. So they've gotten into their first end of scoring here. I can see it just popping up on the elimination bracket screen, which we got back here in the booth so that we can kind of see what's going on. In the men's Open Pro, of course, we've got the top 64 people are transferring here. Braden Galantine with a very slight lead over Cummins. Of course, that's number 11 versus 54. So
he potentially could really have a strong lead there. Let's talk a little bit, Chuck, about what these brackets mean. So when you're seeing a score of 33, for example, Levi Morgan right now tied with McSpadden, what does that mean to you when you see 33? Let's talk about what that means.
So you have 3 arrows. You're shooting 3 arrows for score, right? And so the maximum score per arrow is 11. So 33 points total possible score. The 3 denotes how many 11s they hit, and that becomes important for tiebreakers.
Absolutely. And the other thing that we have to think about today is the role that pressure is going to be playing for these folks who are out there shooting, especially recurve and compound are slightly different games, and we'll talk about the recurve side a little more when those folks come up to shoot. But for the compound shooters, you're really trying to hold that pin very steady because you can see you have magnification, correct?
Yep, you can. It's a little bit of a float. It's impossible to hold that pin perfectly still, but it's a little bit of a float that you're watching so that you can see, minimal movement. You're trying to hold it in the center of the 10 when the shot breaks.
So as we start to watch the archers, you can really start to see, a couple ends ago there was some joking. They were really lighthearted, and I think these folks will still be pretty lighthearted, but man, look at the serious faces as they go down there.
Yeah, and there's a great shot. Now, Sergio Pagni won Vegas last year. Of course, Rio Wild in the blue in the middle.
So Rio and Chance are actually tied after the first end. These guys are such fierce competitors, both shooting for Elite Archery, which is, of course, a bow manufacturer. And look at these guys. They are no joke. Total game face for these two.
Complete different styles, too. You can see Rio kind of leans back a little bit. Chance, much more of an upright shooter, a little longer arm. Now, Rio defends that position a lot of times. You'll have people say, well, his form is terrible because he's leaning way back. Now, Rio studied that form, and he applied what he learned from rifle shooting, Olympic rifle shooting, where they are holding a heavy gun, and they lean back to support that weight over the center of their body in that linear, right over the hips position. And obviously for him, it's worked extremely well over the years. It's interesting to see the different forms and formats that people take and how they make it work for them and how it's successful. I relate it oftentimes to a golf swing. Mm-hmm. Not everybody has the same swing. Not everybody has the same form. There's a basic form that we try to teach, but at the same time, you're trying to make it comfortable. Little onion on that one. You could see him kind of jerk the bow up, hopefully to keep it in the middle, that last second shot.
And some of that is just the pressure, when you release and follow through on that shot. Of course, the arrow's getting out of the bow really fast on these compound bows. They're super fast. But, a little bit of that is nerves, too, right? It's not just a physical release. It's a mental release.
Great shot of that handheld release right there that the compound shooter is using. That's a button-style release where you actually press on that silver barrel, and it makes the jaws open, which makes that string release in letting the arrow go into the target.
And there are just lots of, one of the great things to be learned in watching this coverage today is how many equipment options there are for every archer out there, whether you want to shoot compound or recurve or traditional bows, whether you're, want to gear up and color coordinate your stuff. There are so many options to outfit every archer and so many opportunities here to just try out all kinds of different gear and have a lot of fun with it.
Mm-hmm. Garrett Ayre has been there from Elite. One of the largest it's a boat company in New York anyway. From the outdoor group, they also have CBE. I don't know the young man that he's shooting.
But it's interesting to see these such fierce young competitors on the line this week. I mean, we have got some of the best kids in the country out there shooting. I
got to tell you, I'm really glad. Nice letdown there. He obviously didn't feel that shot was going to go off. You relax, let that arrow down, give it another shot here, and hopefully still hold into a good score instead of letting a bad arrow go.
So he looks pretty steady there coming through the shot. Let's see how he finishes out. Nice, very relaxed.
That looked clean.
Yes, it did.
So one of the things I say to my buddies oftentimes is, man, I'm glad I'm not one of the young guys right now. I'll be into the senior class next year, and some of these new kids that are coming into the game are just so good.
Speaking of people who are good, right now we're watching John Demmer, who is shooting barebow, and he is actually one of the most accomplished barebow shooters out there. Internationally and domestically, he's had an incredible career. He's a very young archer to have had such an incredible career, and he is known for his fashion choices on the line. You will always see him with a crazy graphic tee, some wild colors, and he rocks his personal style, but he is so successful out there. And so for barebow shooters, we may not know this at home, but barebow shooting means that archers are not using the aid of a sight. They are not using any aiming device, and you're going to see a lot of tape on noses, and you might be wondering what that is for. A lot of these archers are drawing the bow back to a higher point on their face and potentially getting contact from their arrow fletchings, and so they've got to protect against that contact.
Yeah, they want to make sure they're not scuffing up their face by the end of the day. And as you mentioned, you know, the barebow division that's here is probably one of the strongest barebow divisions in the entire country. These guys, they do an amazing job at recruiting the best of the best for that division. And it's important to recognize that when we're talking about barebow archery and things like this, and what is barebow? Barebow is how our game was born, right? It's, if you think about the old days when, you know, it was you or your grandpa or you as a child in the backyard with an old stick and string shooting into a bale of hay, that's barebow, and that's where our sport was born. Lancaster Archery recognizes that, and they have a very solid commitment to making sure that that barebow division survives and that it's celebrated and that it's promoted. One of the guys that works at Lancaster, John, is a huge fan of traditional archery, and he goes out and tries to recruit these guys to make sure that we get the best of the best here at this event. I think we have a stronger barebow division here than probably even Vegas, which is a bigger event.
I would agree with you. I actually had the pleasure yesterday to shoot with Ben Rogers and Alan Eagleton, who are, you know, two of our top nationally and international champions in the barebow division, and these gentlemen were so nice to shoot with. Class acts, but man, can they lay it down with no sight. I mean, I was watching them shoot, and of course I've got my, you know, fancy Olympic recurve bow with a sight and stabilizer and rest and clicker and all these, you know, different accessories, and here are these guys with a simple stabilizer, and they're pulling the arrow back with no sight, and they are drilling the middle of the target.
Yeah, they're absolutely pounding it.
It was super humbling, I gotta tell you.
Yeah, most of those barebow guys would stomp many of us in the compound division. So here we're taking a look on the bracket. Brady Ellison currently leading. Jake Kaminsky also leading, only by a point in the recurve. Look at that. Butch is winning his.
Yes, Butch Johnson ahead. And
sizable lead, 61-53 there.
Joe McGlynn, also a New Yorker,
Yep.
leading in the recurve division. Dylan McMenemy, one of Joe's longtime students, another New Yorker, leading his match by one. He's got a tough opponent there in Vaccaro. And Zach Garrett shooting against Holst. So Zach Garrett, leading by 7, is also another one of our Olympic medalists, member of the U.S. Olympic team this year. And then right behind him, one of his former teammates, Olympic hopeful Colin Klimacek, leading his match by 10 points.
Yeah, you can see the separation in those guys really fast. Really fast. Now, you'll notice here at this event, they're not allowed to repair their target face. You have to leave the holes there. There's no sticking your hand back there and making it look pretty again. You can replace the face anytime you like. That's one of the things Rob stresses, is you can replace the face anytime you like, but you may not repair target holes.
Which totally makes sense, because we want to, you know, really maintain the integrity of the competition and make sure that there is no room for error in deciding who has shot what score. And with the larger diameter arrows, particularly that the compounders are shooting indoors, certainly those targets get chewed up really fast. Can we talk a little bit about what those arrows look like for the folks at home?
Yeah, so in our division, well, a lot of times in the compound division, you'll use, on the indoor side, you'll use something larger like what we call a 2712 or a triple X if it's made by Gold Tip. It's a very large diameter, either aluminum or carbon arrow. The maximum diameter allowed under competition is 422 thousandths. The 27 is actually denotes 27/64ths of an inch if you wanted to measure it that way. There's also an arrow called an X jammer. It's fairly large as well. 414 is the outside diameter of that one. And then in a lot of the common guys are shooting 26s or 25s or even a 2315, which is feet illegal for international competition. And there's a great shot of Brady. There's with his new logo there for his apparel. Compounds brackets up there, and then we'll get back into the arrows.
Sure thing.
Sam Woltes is leading over Rose. Tate Morgan is currently 2 points behind in his match, which is pretty surprising. He's a pretty solid shooter. Jesse Broadwater, no surprise, 5 points up. Keith Trail was a shocker yesterday. He came in and really laid it down with a 657. We hadn't seen him in quite a while. Many of these matches tied right up. They're going to go into these final ends here, really fighting it out. Jeremy Terhune up over Gibbs. Glenn Bordwell and Paul Tedford tied. Glenn Bordwell from my neck of the woods. Paul Tedford, obviously a very popular international archer here from the United States. Henry Bass leading his match only by a point. Dan McCarthy leading his match. He shot a 30X yesterday. He's up by a point. Chris Perkins from Canada, he's up on his match by 3 points, so he should be doing really, really well going into this last end.
We've got up here on the screen right now some of those barebow shooters again, and here in the front is Rick Stonebreaker, one of the most accomplished barebow shooters out there. Rick has been on the scene for a long time, and he has a knack for telling jokes while he is shooting and keeps his competitors laughing. Here we've got Jeremiah Cusick and Jake Kaminsky. Jake, of course, a two-time Olympic medalist.
This weekend,
yes. So Jake made a big switch from Hoyt to win and win. Jake actually rolled this out with a big social media splash called Blurgate, and had been posting pictures of his bows blurred out for about a month there, getting folks at home talking about what his switch was going to be. Well, he's made a firm decision to head to win and win, and we talked to him yesterday. Of course, you can look back in yesterday's coverage and see. And there we've got Alan Eagleton, who we mentioned earlier, another fantastic barebow shooter. We have just got so much talent in this building, Chuck, and what a tremendous tournament Rob and Carol Kaufhold of Lancaster Archery Supply have put on to bring the entire archery community together from across the pond and everywhere.
Yeah, it's amazing to see how well this has grown, and this is only the 14th year. You say 14th year, and it's like, well, it's been around a while, but I remember going to this event when it was almost like a club shoot, right?
Absolutely.
It was just upstairs in the old Lancaster facility. Great shot of Jake there.
And Jake executed a really smooth shot there. It's going to be interesting to see how he does this weekend. Jake has really evolved over the years, and folks may remember him from the 2012 Olympic Games in London, where he was certainly under a lot of pressure in his last arrows and had a pretty tough and kind of spectacular exit early in the competition individually back in London. But in Rio, Jake just absolutely killed it. He was a super strong shot in Rio and did very, very well individually, had a tough bracket, moved his way through it. And then, of course, on the team front, took home a silver medal along with teammates Zach Garrett and Brady Ellison. Yeah, you could really see the maturity over that short time span. So that, when you could see the big difference in him, and that made it was visible. Absolutely. And speaking of which, maturity, here is his teammate from Rio, Zach Garrett, that we're watching on the screen right now. And Zach was new to the scene over the last few years, of course. As a youth competitor, Zach was just a strong shot. He came up through the Junior Dream Team program for USA Archery and moved his way up in the ranks and actually made it all the way to the Rio Olympic Games, which is an amazing thing. Zach is known for being one of the hardest workers out there. So, you'd be at an international tournament and archers would be, packing up their bags after their 72-hour qualification. Zach heads over to the practice bales and puts in 2 more hours. He's one of those archers who will not be outworked no matter what happens.
Yeah, he's really giving it his all. He has a dream, he has a goal, and he has no issues with putting the effort behind it to get there. Great shot of that Barebow action there.
And it's nice to see, as we're talking about the growth in archery. So one of the major areas where we've seen growth in this sport is in women and youth. And women in particular are hunting more, they are shooting more, and they are getting very, very involved in archery.
Well, I think we can thank the industry for that, for recognizing that there was a lack of effort to recruit women into the game. And so you've seen manufacturers, especially over the last few years, most recently, building women-specific bows. And when I say women-specific bows, I don't mean just pink or purple. I mean actual bows that are engineered, built, designed for smaller frame, lighter poundage, with the women's anatomy, the physique, their shoulders aren't as broad, generally not as tall. All of those things that they're taking into consideration. Arrows that are spined properly for children and weaker draw lengths or weaker draw weights that were there. They existed before, but not in a mass popularity. And I think, your involvement with some of the organizations that you work with, the ATA and things like this, and the Archery 360 program and whatnot, I think has been a big benefit to that, to help them reinforce that path that they need to go down.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we've tried to do with Archery 360 and Lancaster Archery Supply and many other industry companies have been a big help with that advisory committee, is to try to put together a website and Facebook and other social media to really just help educate people who are thinking about archery, they're not really sure how to get involved. Archery 360 builds excitement around that movement, with entertainment, cultural, and lifestyle articles, and then just gives a lot of great beginner how-to information to really help strip the mystique away and help drive people to the best place to get started, which obviously here we're at Lancaster Archery Supply. It is your local pro shop, whether that's Lancaster here in this area or wherever your local pro shop is. That is the best place for folks to get started. And
I think it's really important that you touch on that. It's in this day and age, it's very, very important that we as archers at any level support our local brick and mortar shops.
Absolutely.
Obviously there's a lot of ways to order product online, and there's a lot of shady guys online that sell product extremely inexpensively, and they cut out the manufacturers, they cut out your brick and mortar shops. You need to support your local archery shop.
Yes.
The guys who actually have targets on the wall where you can go and you can experience archery. It's very, very important that we stress to our viewers and our participants, look, man, you gotta do whatever you can to keep those guys alive, because if we lose those brick and mortar shops, then we start to lose our handle on archery.
Well, and one of the things that's really important there too, as we mentioned yesterday in one of our interviews, that buying a bow is a bit like getting fitted for a pair of hiking shoes. It's so specific, it's so personal, and
really
the reality is, buying a bow on the internet sight unseen, especially if you're new to the sport, it's the difference between getting the right fit, the right equipment for your budget, for your level of experience, and then having a really positive lifetime experience in this sport, compared to trying something that may be ill-fitted and not quite the right thing for you and potentially injuring and stopping archery before you've even had a chance to start and see how wonderful this entire sport is.
Right, and it doesn't even matter what brand you pick, and it doesn't matter what style you pick, whether you go with a recurve or a Barebow or a compound. Just getting involved and doing that and staying within the game is really important. There's a lot to do and a lot of ways to have fun.
Absolutely.
By the way, if you're watching us at home, you can tune into the Elimination brackets, and you can track and see everything that's going on right here live as we do it through Archers, which is rcherz.com, archers.com. And you can see the live scoring there. Of course, you can tune into the LAS broadcast. You're watching it live on YouTube and several other outlets through the Lancaster website.
And there we see Heather File, and Heather actually runs the Junior Olympic Archery Development Program here at the Lancaster Archery Academy. She is also, works in the pro shop here at Lancaster Archery Supply and has been helping to manage this tournament all weekend. So she's been coaching, she's been shooting, she's been helping to run the event. Heather is a one woman.
It's a good thing she's young. She's got amazing energy.
She's a powerhouse, and together with her significant other, Gary Reynolds, who also works here at Lancaster Archery Supply. Of course, they both shoot together. They are an archery team. Fun fact about Heather, she actually told me yesterday that her last name, File, means arrow in German.
Does it really?
It really does.
When you proceed to the targets,
Roger Willett's girlfriend.
Erica Faulkner there, and trying to shake the nerves out a little bit.
Yeah, you can see she's got a little groove dance going on, just kind of clear her head.
Erica's also really into horseback riding, and if they could competitively, she's into equestrian sports.
She's a writer as well. Yep, does a lot of stuff in that whole realm.
And she's been new on the circuit for the past, I think, 2 to 3 years, right? Chuck, she's been competing about that long.
Yeah, she might have been around a little longer, but she really kind of came onto the scene and, recognizable fashion in the last 2-3 seasons.
Let's see how she does here. We've got, of course, so many strong women shooting here this weekend, and it's so exciting to see the growth in the women's division. And you can see there she's got the bow back, and she looks pretty steady at full draw. A little movement, but not much. Executes that shot fast. And now you guys can see at home she's pulling out binoculars. And you might be saying, well, gee, why does she need binoculars for a target that's 20 yards away? And the answer, of course, is that it can be a little tough, especially with shadows downrange once those arrows start hitting the target. It's a little tough to see exactly where the arrow shaft is entering. Have you caught that 11 or not?
Yeah, have you hit it? There's Crispin Duenas. He's leading his match right now, 88-82. Crispin from Canada, 3-time Olympian.
One of the great things about watching Crispin shoot is how aggressively he executes his shot. So it's actually really nice to see how smooth he tends to come through the shot. So for a recurve archer, he's pulling that arrow through a little blade of metal called a clicker, which tells him when he's hit his draw length and when it's time to release. And you can see they're very strong on the release, very decisive on the follow-through. There is no hesitation for him.
No, great guy. I shot with Crispin yesterday. I've shot with him before at other events yesterday, or in the past as well. Super fun guy. Physics instructor.
That's correct. He's a substitute teacher working on math and physics. And here we just want to point out, I believe her last name is McCracken. She shoots with Archery Learning Center, JOAD, the Hornet team. And we've got a little shake there. So
trembly.
That is a great example. It's actually a good opportunity a good teaching moment there. So that little bit of tremor in the elbow, some of it is a result of the pressure here at the tournament. Some of it is just the result of aiming pretty hard and that struggle between continuous movement and aiming. So here we've got a really, Chuck, if you want to speak to some of the results coming in, it looks like we've got some great match scores.
Yeah, I see a lot of them are tied right up. Steve Anderson leading his match over Louis Price. Louis Price at a great shop in upstate New York with his father, Mike Price. Sam Woltis is leading his match. Tate Morgan down only by an X, so that's almost a tie. Jesse Broadwater is, handily in front of his competitor Keith Trail, only up by a point over Donnie Thacker. Shane Wills, past winner here, he's up pretty handily over Chris B. Grant Schlusner, he's a finalist here in the past as well, is down by a couple of points. Jeremy Terhune is currently leading his match. Glenn Bordwell, Paul Tedford, they've tied that up. Glenn Bordwell, young man from up in upstate Tully, New York. That's a pretty solid match. I'm surprised to see it that tight. Henry Bass leading his match only by a point over Adam Gibson, another Hoyt shooter. KJ Polish down by a point under Dan McCarthy. Dan shot a 30X yesterday. Chris Perkins from Canada up by a few points over Hirschberger. Jacob Marlowe also winning his match over Passmore. Dan Yassa, who's recently switched over. He's a PSE rep now. He's down by a couple of points.
And here we're seeing Sachi Keem. So let's talk about her for a minute. I think that's Sachi, if I can see her. So she shoots for Precision Archery Joad out of New York. She is one of the most dominating youth compound archers out there. She has been shooting since she was very young, shooting a lot of target archery style events, and it has been a pleasure to follow her since she was in the Bowman division shooting national record scores. And here she is. I think she may now be a cadet. And she is just a tremendously talented youth archer. She's going to be ready very soon to play with the big girls. She makes very quick, decisive shots. She does not play when she gets to the line.
No, and she was a really high qualifier. I think she might be the top qualifier, actually, in her division. And you saw when she let down there, see how she pointed the bow steeply at the ground. One of the reasons for that here is there's a fairly hard floor. If the arrow passes past the 10-foot line, it's considered a shot arrow. So if she points it steep down to the floor and accidentally goes off, she has an opportunity to kind of save that shot, kind of recover that arrow. It may not skid her out over the floor. She might get that shot back, and that happens occasionally when you're letting down, let the arrow pop off the string.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
We saw that with George Wiles in France. He lost an arrow, skidded out over the floor.
One of the things that we're going to see out here today is just, again, we can't say it enough, but the effective pressure on how people shoot. And we're going to start seeing it as these match scores are starting to roll in, and you can see the brackets here as these arrows are scored. Now, these are straight 12-arrow matches for cumulative score, which means some of these matches, I think we're going to start to see resolution on some of these matches here in a minute.
Right, and if you're wondering how it works, if you see the archer written in yellow, that's the archer that's currently leading the match. Their score, well, their target number is right underneath their name. Their score, like with Sergio, it says 97 with 7. That means he has a cumulative score at 97, but he has 7 11s, and that would be a tiebreaker for him. And then you see Kendall Woody and Chris Hacker. They're tied, 98 apiece, 8 11s apiece, so that match is going to have to continue. Chance Bobeff, 99 with 9. Over Rio Wild, 96 and 6. That's
amazing.
That's a pending upset. Well, Rio didn't qualify all that well. He qualified 55th, with Chance qualifying 10th. It's a little stunning to see that, especially with the run that Rio had here in the years past. We jokingly called it the Rio Wild Invitational for a while there. I think he was the first guy to shoot a perfect 660. Which in the qualifying round we shoot 60 arrows, and you can shoot a perfect 660. You can see some photographs going on there, so some matches resolving. In the men's recurve division, we can see here, Teresa, you're the expert there. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah,
what upsets?
So we've got Jason Pfister, who really has had just a tremendous weekend here. He's out 117 to 109 over Gibson. So he's had a very strong run, and he's going to advance in that match. Tom Stanwood, you can see they were tied at 89-89 with Matt Requa, who lives at the Olympic Training Center. Tom Stanwood, of course, a full-time attorney, former Olympic hopeful. Hopefully he's going to make another run at Tokyo. Dan Schuler, who works here at Lancaster Archery Supply, advances against Azores. And Crispin Duenas out ahead right now before his match updates. We're not sure by how much, but he was leading as of the last end by 6 points. And of course, we got some additional scores coming in with the men's open division and the senior open division. We've got a lot of strong scores out there on the board, and we've got a lot of matches that are going to be resolved right now, and probably some tiebreakers as well, right, Chuck?
I would imagine there's going to be a few. I was trying to watch the scroll as it went past, just to see. Oh, there's a great shot of a target there, and you can see this arrow on the right-hand side of the screen. It's inside that 11 ring, so that will score as an 11. That's in the center of the screen there. If you look at the target or the arrow that's on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see where it broke the 10 line, but it's not touching that inner 11 or X ring. So that arrow on the left will score a 10. That arrow in the center of the screen will score an 11. And if you look right over on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see another arrow that will also score as an 11. Oh, but there's a 9 above it. You see that arrow to the left center of the screen? It's below the 10 ring. It's in the yellow. That'll score 9 points. Great shot if the guy in the sweater moves out of the way. You could see. So that there's an arrow in the upper left corner with a yellow fletching there. you can see where it's in the red. Now, normally that arrow, you might say, well, that's an 8, but you can see how the edge of the shaft is broken into the yellow just a little bit. So that archer will get the benefit there. That'll actually be scored a 9.
Right, and so that we look at those sort of line cutter shots, and that's where people say, well, why do people shoot fat arrows indoors? Well, there's a couple
That's
reasons
exactly
for it.
why you shoot
That's
it.
the biggest one, right? So number
Exactly.
one, you want to catch lines with those arrows. And then the other thing is that, of course, a larger arrow, an aluminum arrow, is going to be a little slower but more forgiving. So you can't get away with shooting those outside because you do lose so much speed. But indoors, it's short distance. There's no reason not to shoot a more forgiving, slightly slower arrow that's going to catch lines for you.
Right. It's a little bit of a tuning challenge to get some of those
Correct.
bigger arrows to fly properly because they're generally a lot stiffer, so you have to do a lot more work to get them to fly properly. It can pay off if you get it set up the right way. Looking at the men's Open Pro bracket here, you can see Chris Perkins is going to move on. Jacob Marlowe is going to move on against Passmore. Looks like there's going to be a shoot-off for Jackson and Callaway. Bounce is going to move on over Dan Yassa. Braden Galantine, world champion, also a world record holder. He's going to advance. Sullivan over Young. Levi Morgan is going to advance over McSpadden. Levi also shot very well yesterday. Shot a 653 with 53 11s, so never missed the Big Ten. Jack Wallace was beat by Chris Schaff. He'll advance. Dave Cousins is also going to advance. Dave Cousins, obviously a lifetime pro guy, recognized all around the world. Sergio advancing over Joseph Goza. Sergio won Vegas last year. Good match there. Kendall Woody also advancing over Chris Hacker. Chance Bobeff is going to take the win over Rio Wild. That's a pretty good upset there. Zeb Michael Braden looks like he's going to advance over Colton Hamilton. Garrett Arisman is going to advance over Sheehan. Mike Schlosser, international guy. Also, I think he won Vegas as well. Going to advance over Patterson into the next round.
And he's just such a dominating shooter. One of the things, so Mike is from the Netherlands, of course. They call him Magic Mike. He has just hit some tremendous world record scores, and he's very young. Chuck, I think he's like 22 years old or 23 years old. He's a young guy.
He's incredible, and he's on the line. He's just it's like watching a statue. He's incredible to watch. He was the first person to shoot a perfect indoor FIDA score, 600, which
is just incredible.
With a small diameter 23 series shaft, never missed the 10 ring, which in the international scene, in the FIDA scene, for those who aren't aware, the little inner ring that we're calling the 11 is what they call the 10 ring in FIDA. And he was the first one who actually never missed that 6-area arrow. So
absolutely,
they gave him the name Mr. Perfect when he did that.
So we got some men's recurve results coming in, and Brady Ellison advancing with a strong 124. Purcell ahead by with a 110, so he advances as well. Jake Kaminsky over his friend and former teammate Jeremiah Cusick by 2 points. He advances. Butch Johnson advances as well. Joe McGlynn. Shooting it looks like he shot a 120. Fulsang, Vaccaro, both advance. It looks like some of these scores may not be all the way in yet. I think a couple of the handhelds may not be updated, but Zach Garrett, a decisive win there, 121 to 108. Colin Klimacek, who finished 5th in the U.S. Olympic team trials last year, 120. It looks like he'll advance. Rissinger, and again Pfister, who could really surprise us this weekend. I think we may see some, we're not seeing huge surprises in the men's open, in the pro brackets for the compound men, but I think we may see some shakeups in this recurve bracket because it looks like some archers are really on their game, some not quite so much. Now, part of the reason for that on the recurve side, Chuck, is that, as we know, the Olympics are shot outdoors. World Cup and World Championship events are shot outdoors. This year is a World Championships year. That is a biennial event, so it's held every other year. When archers are getting geared up either for an Olympic year or if they're getting ready for a World Championship year, they may start to put less emphasis on the indoor season because they're a little concerned about over-aiming at 18 meters or 20 yards. And so you start to see some recurve archers who will come out to these events. They're top shooters for sure, but but they're not putting a ton of focus on their 20-yard game because they're a little bit more focused on getting ready for the outdoor season where they're going to shoot 70 meters all spring and summer long.
Yeah, exactly.
Please clear targets as soon as you can. Thank
Trying
you.
to get a handle here on some of the brackets to also see what's going on in the men's open. I feel a little bad that we haven't given those guys the attention that they deserve as well, because the men's open bracket is a huge bracket. Some of the names I don't recognize quite as much, but these guys travel from all over the country and all over the world to shoot this event as well. Look at some of the top ones there. Robert Delfonso, I recognize. Mike Campbell, Colt Setzer. John Wheeler is going to advance as well. Now, John, if I have that right, he's shot bow hunter division in the past. He's actually won Louisville in the NFAA.
And it looks like we've also got some good international. Right ahead.
Rob Friedel, he's a PA boy. Looks like he's gonna advance out of his match. Josh Sidebottom, he's been around for a long, long time in the industry. Just missed his match there against Tom Stevenson. It looks like we're getting ready for a shoot-off there. KJ chatting it up with Dan McCarthy.
So one of the things that we'll see here this weekend is, of course, you have archers with a lot of different levels of physical ability. And one of the things that's so wonderful about archery is it's a completely adaptable sport. So whether you're shooting from a wheelchair, if you have had an amputation or have any other sort of physical limitation that might stop you, you might see it as a barrier in archery. It's not a barrier. We have archers out there, Matt Stutzman being, of course, a prime example, an archer who was born without arms, shoots using a release that's strapped to his shoulder, draws the bow back that way, and uses his feet to hold the bow, and has been remarkably successful. Jeff Fabry, who uses a mouth tab and is a Paralympic champion and multi-time gold medalist. So we really see that in archery that physical limitation, and Janice Walth actually comes to mind as well, who's visually impaired, shoots using a tactile sight and shoots very, very well without vision. And so archery is truly a sport for everybody out there.
Yeah, I've seen her shoot in Vegas. It's a pretty incredible situation, really.
Yeah, she is actually a really fierce competitor, and I remember being on the line shooting with her my first year in Vegas and watching her nail the yellow and thinking, this is incredible. This is a really talented shooter.
He is.
Right here, you've got Christine Harrelson and Alicia North, and I'd love to talk a little bit about these two ladies. Christine Harrelson has been, of course, an upcoming pro on the 3D circuit for the women, and so 3D, we're talking about 3D foam dimensional targets of animals. Alicia North is gonna be an interesting surprise this weekend. Christine has been working with Alicia. I've worked with her a little bit as well with Christine. She is an up-and-coming women's recurve archer, a young woman from North Carolina, about 21 years old. And Alicia's just getting started with shooting, but she is fierce, and this young lady has big dreams. She'd like to really take archery as far as she can. This was only, I think, her third competition ever, including leagues and local club shoots. Here. And she came out yesterday and I think qualified somewhere around a 540, 545. And made the cut.
Pretty good number coming out of the gate for your first major.
She's incredibly talented, Chuck, and I think she's going to do really well out there. So that's the young lady in the blue with Christine, her coach, on the left in the Lancaster Archery Supply shirt. And I think we're going to see really good things out of Alicia this weekend. Christine, of course, just missed the cut by a point. And now I think we're about to see a tiebreaker here between Dan McCarthy and is that Kevin Polish next to him?
It is, which is, well, it depends on how you look at that. Danny came out of the gate yesterday, and I know he either started with a 30X or finished with a 30X. So he shot an incredible round, and to be in a shoot-off here is, I'm sure, something he didn't really expect. I'm sure he expected the first round to go a lot easier.
So let's talk about the pressure of a shoot-off, Chuck, because that is actually so much fun when it's fun as a spectator. I don't know how much fun it is as a competitor, because you don't want to be in it.
No, personally, I love shoot-offs.
So let's talk about what's the format for the shoot-off today?
I believe it's 3 arrows, or 6 arrows rather, and winner goes home, or winner advances, loser goes home. But we have quite a few of them that we're going to deal with here. It's the same time format, the same scoring format. They'll shoot, winner will advance, loser goes home. 3 arrows. We're being told 3 arrows. So it basically, with the last matches.
Thank you.
There's Rob trying to get the crowd's attention there, trying to get everybody settled down and ready to go so they can get these shoots off, get them done.
And of course, they're doing a great job of keeping the shoot running on time, on schedule, and part of that is marshaling the crowd a little bit when you need to, and Rob does a fantastic job of that.
Yeah, we have a very, very tight schedule here, a very, very tight window. That, of course, is Larry Wise. He's going over the rules of the shoot-off here.
And Larry's belt buckle, which I want to call attention to because it is so fantastic, and I don't know. So it's actually, it looks like it's an arrowhead or the point of an arrow, and it's a fantastic piece of bling. I was admiring it yesterday, thinking, why don't I have a belt buckle like that?
He can rock it too.
He really can. Larry is a really well-respected coach, particularly on the compound side. He himself, I think, competed for quite some time. Is that correct, Chuck?
Yeah. I worked with Larry last year at a special event for the Warrior Project, which was we went down to one of the military academies, and they have an incredible archery event there, and Larry was one of the judges. And I was doing some commentating down there. What a great guy, what a lot of fun. Those events, holy cow, we would love to get those guys up in here.
Yes.
They had cowbells and vuvuzelas and chanting and megaphones. It was the loudest, most raucous crowd I have ever heard at an archery match. It sounded like a soccer match. And by comparison here, you can just about hear a pin drop in here right now as these guys are completing their round.
We just saw quite a face from Dan McCarthy, and I'm not sure what that means, so we're going to take a look
See if we can
and
get a
see
shot
what's
of his
happening.
target down there. They shot 1 arrow, closest to the center.
So it looks like this is going to be a 1-arrow shoot-off format today, which is similar to most target archery events out there. And it's a little hard to tell from here. Hopefully we can get in a little closer on that target and speak to it. And McCarthy...
That's Heights' target.
Nope, that's
yeah.
not their target.
I see Tedford's in a shoot-off there. That was Lambright.
We really did see quite a face from McCarthy, so we'll have to see. Oh,
I don't know. It looked like it was a pretty good shot. They just panned past it.
And again, I mean, for a lot of these archers, especially the very best shooters out there on the line, sometimes it's, again, you want to hit that 11, you want to hit the dead center, but man, you want to do it making a good shot. And I think sometimes you get the face because although they may have hit the middle, he may not have been happy with the shot.
Mm-hmm. It looks like a great shot, though.
It looks beautiful. And of course, in a shoot-off situation with that much money on the line, man, you'll take, even an 11 that maybe felt a little sloppy to you. And speaking as a shooter, certainly not one at this level, but a 10 is a 10 in a shoot-off situation, or an 11's an 11, and you'll take a top arrow.
And these guys are going to go at it again. You see Dan get the little twirl there, and he's ready to shoot. We've got a T-shirt in the way of all the action. There we go. And it's so quiet in here now as these guys are getting ready.
Yeah, you can hear a pin drop because there's just so much on the line. There's prize money on the line. Of course, there's contingency money. So what that means, of course, is for many of these archers, if they're using a particular brand of equipment and they have a sponsor or there's an open contingency prize, that means that equipment sponsor will pay additional prize money to an archer who wins shooting their gear.
And there's a lot of money on the line for that. I want to say Rom said there was around $190,000 in the complete purse this weekend. Which
is just incredible when you think about it.
It's a ton of money for an archery tournament, which is great. I mean, they spread it around amongst everybody, from the seniors to the adults to the professionals, recurve, Everybody, Barebow, everybody gets a little piece of the pie down here. And we're just waiting. We're just waiting for those guys to get their arrow underway here. See the officials still downrange, getting the results called in perfectly so that everybody is understanding what's going on. Big 3D championship buckle there for Andy.
And of course, part of this also is keeping accurate scoring and scorecards, and so you do see the archers are not playing when it comes to their scorecards, because an incorrect or improperly filled out scorecard can mean a loss. So archers are paying a lot of attention to small details that we may not necessarily pick up on camera, but those are all part of the game as well.
Right. And here we use a double scoring system here. We have an electronic scoring during the qualification match, more or less an advanced mini iPad where all the scores are put in electronically, so that's how we keep the live scoring going.
And here we go. We've got Dan McCarthy.
Dan at full draw. Dan works incredibly hard in the off season to get his bows just the way he wants. Look how steady he's holding. If you look at the
and very steady for both of them, actually.
tip of the stabilizer there.
And
oh, did you see that big bobble there? And he didn't let down.
It looked like he was going to let it down.
Oh man. You hope for a good result there, but you could see him really come off his face.
That was tough. You know, he looked.
He doesn't look upset though.
No, and
he might have pulled that out. Dan looks like he's not ready to walk away, like he's ready to shoot another one.
Still time.
Yep.
Still time, 25.
Dan gives it a click. You saw him reach up and touch that knob on the front of the bow. That's a sight, and he can adjust that. A couple of clicks up or down to help him guide the arrow higher or lower into the target face so that he gets exactly what he's after. Two Matthews Archer there, two different bow setups, two different configurations. You can see how everybody can really customize however they want to shoot, whatever they want to shoot, even from one manufacturer, all the different setups that they can choose.
And there's so much fun in the gear chuck. Like, I mean, everybody can just turn into a total gearhead in archery. I've done it, and I never would have called myself a gearhead before I found archery, but I'll tell you what, I love working on bows. It's so much fun to tune them and play with new accessories, and, you know, just the way everybody does that for golf and skiing and every other sport out there. This is a sport that if you are a gearhead, you can have so much fun learning about your gear and playing with it to really performance tune, just like a race car, performance tune your bows.
Yeah, exactly. And you can see when you look at Dan's bow or KJ's bow, the long rods there for the people at home who may not know what those are stabilizers, which are generally made out of a carbon or an advanced modular material like that. They can move them into different positions, and they can apply different amounts of weights in different areas. And I try to liken them to or explain them to, you know, like a tightrope walker that has a long rod in their hand to help keep them balanced. So that's what those rods do. They help those bows balance better in their hands and hold still through the shot. Great shot of Danny's arrow there. That's a signature arrow for him, Black Eagle. It's a PS-26 is that he's shooting.
That was a strong, steady shot from Dan McCarthy. It's a little tough. These guys have such a poker face, but looks like we have a resolution.
Yep, you can hear the applause from the crowd there.
That's why we don't go to 6 anymore.
These guys, you know, great friends, great teammates.
Do we have a winner?
Braden steps up there to congratulate as well.
Do we have a winner?
And it looks like Rob's
Dan McCarthy wins that closest to center shoot-off.
and you could hear the announcement there from Rob. That was Dan McCarthy who won the closest to center shoot-off on that last arrow.
And what great shooting from both of those guys, just to see Kevin, and Dan push each other like that. Every time you see archers push each other, it makes the whole game better, it makes the whole sport better.
Absolutely. Dan's been in shoot-offs for years. I mean, you don't think, and same with KJ. I mean, they've been doing this for a long, long time. The shoot-offs don't rattle these guys at all. It's just one more shot. They just need to make the best possible execution they can and hope for the best result. So now what we're going to see is the fields have been cut in half. You're going to see all new archers hanging new faces, new targets, getting ready for the next round as we cut into that next bracket. Again, you're watching the Lancaster Archery Classic 2017. My name is Chuck Cooley, and I'm here with Teresa Johnson. Both of us about 20 years apiece. We were talking about this earlier, how long we had both been in the industry. And you'd said you broke into this back in 98 or 99?
I shot my first arrows in 1999.
Yep, and I was just about a year ahead of that. And it's quite amazing to see what's developed over the industry in all these years. If you're looking for information on live scoring and you're watching at home, of course you're probably watching on YouTube through the Lancaster Archery channel. To follow with the live scoring, you can do that through archers.com, which is spelled RCHERZ.com. That's archers.com. And you can click through the brackets and the matches, and you can see everything that's going on. Hey, wave to the crowd there, Teresa. We're live right here in Pennsylvania at the Spooky Nook Sports Complex, and as we can see, everybody's getting their name tags in place and their new targets hung, and we're gonna cut the field in half again. Now that's a pretty quick cut. I mean, we started this just about 8 a.m. and we cut the field from 64 to 32 in just under an hour.
Yeah, and some of these other divisions that competed, so, right now, just to give everybody a sense of where we're at, we have resolution for the first match in men's Open Pro, men's Open, Masters Open, Youth Open Male, and men's recurve have all had a cut. So in those last three divisions, men's recurve, Masters Open, and Youth Open Male, those folks have cut to the top 16 archers, and they will advance to the next round. And we also saw Women's Open, Senior Open, Youth Open Female, Bow Hunter, and Barebow recurve compete their 1/8, which means that 8 archers will be advancing. And up next at 9:15, we're going to continue with all of those divisions coming into the
Great shot
field.
Of Mike Price and his young archer, Owen.
Oh, there you go.
I shoot with Owen every Monday night, or every Tuesday night in leagues back home. That young man right there has pushed me to the limit on shoot-offs the last 2 weeks. It is incredible how this kid shoots. He'll lay down a 27 or 28X almost in his sleep. He's an incredible young man. We're going to see a lot out of him in the next few years.
And that's great to see, and I totally can speak to that, Chuck, having done some coaching, that that it's the best thing you see is that the kids are pushing you and getting way ahead of you, because it means that the future of this sport is so bright.
Man, if I have to compete against that, I'm so glad. Well, initially I was pretty
glad he's younger.
that I was going to be going into the senior brackets, and the senior brackets were going to be a lot of fun. And then I looked at some of the guys who were transferring into the senior division in the next year, and it's going to be just as hard.
Yeah.
But these young guys that are coming in, these young women that are coming in, these young girls are so good. You watch these, and these young girls are shooting men's scores. We did a tournament back home this past weekend, and one of the young girls that made the cut here, Marissa Harding, she's shooting and made the cut today. She made it to 5th place against all the adult men in the room of an initial field of about 40 or 50 people. So these young kids, whether it be boys or girls, they're really incredible. Like I said earlier, the equipment that these kids have today, that they have available to them, and the coaching that they have available to them is something that we didn't experience 15, 20, even 30 years ago.
Absolutely. I mean, to see the evolution, I remember, thinking when you were saying earlier how long we'd both been involved in the sport, thinking back to the first bows that I had bought, right? I think I got my first one used from a friend, and then from there I remember ordering one of my bows sight unseen, like literally not even a demo model, because the shop didn't even have or carry women's bows, right? Because they were so hard to get. So
right.
I think Matthews at the time had a short draw bow, and that was what I ordered, and hoped I liked it when it showed up. And you take that and contrast it to what is available today at pro shops all over the country. you just have so many different equipment options. You have different colors, you have different cam configurations. You can tailor that bow to whatever shooting experience you want. If you're fired up about indoor archery, if you're fired up about 3D shooting. Oh yeah, let's talk to this kilt one moment here. So on the camera here, we have got Laura Bennett. She's a recurve archer, and she is wearing a utility kilt. I talked to her yesterday, so she actually was on Project Runway Season 3. She's a very good target archer on the recurve side, and she purchased men's utility kilts on Amazon in tucked a quiver into the pocket, basically turning her quilt into her quiver. So she's wearing all of her gear, which is pretty awesome.
That looks amazing.
She always looks fabulous on the line there. She's talking to Casey Kaufhold, who is one of the top competitors here this weekend. She's going to be shooting against Lenola Pritchard, who was the women's Olympic team alternate this year. Casey, who is, her last name sounds familiar to you? Well, it should. She's the daughter of Rob and Carol Kaufhold, owners of Lancaster Archery Supply. And Casey is just a fierce young competitor along with her brother Connor. We had a great conversation with Rob this morning talking about how these two siblings really push each other hard. And I'm told she does not like to lose to her brother, and her brother does not like to lose to her, and so she's got the best built-in training partner. So there's Miss Casey, and she is shooting on fire lately, and it's going to be very interesting to see how she does after, I think, a national record-setting summer last year, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, she's had an incredible year. There's a good shot of Dave Cousins there trying to stay in the zone. He's kind of hidden behind the white shirt there. Kendall Woody in the red from Hoyt. Kendall's he's been around for forever. We call him the Bulldog. He is an amazing shooter for the time that he's able to commit, because he has a very important job back home. Just his skill set he's a really gifted archer. Dave Cousins, of course, there on the left-hand side. Dave Cousins, one of the very first men in archery to essentially not ever have a day job. He came out of high school, went right into full-time archery, and really paved the way for the young archers these days to have or earn a living in archery, and Dave's been able to do that for 20 years or so. Good shot of Christy Collin and
Erica Jones next to her, and it's so good to see Erica out here at this event this weekend. So Erica is coming back after a bit of a leave. She started competing at the end of last season again, I think, in the USA Archery events, and of course Erica left a couple of years ago. She was absolutely indisputably worldwide one of the best archers out there, male or female.
Yeah, number one ranked woman across many years,
forever,
and then went and was mom,
and she has a beautiful son named Clayton, her and her husband Casey, and Erica has just been outstanding out there, so it's good to see her back.
Great shot of Mel Nichols there. Mel is one of the senior coaches for the men's Olympic team.
Yep, he was a U.S. Olympic team coach in 2012 and 2016, and of course his stepson Brady Ellison, just a fierce competitor out there. And Mel is also personal coach to Mackenzie Brown, who was the women's U.S. Olympic team member. Seated next to him is Crystal Govin, and love to talk about Crystal for a minute. So she has just switched from compound to recurve. She's actually ranked number 2 in the world right now in compound, but she made the commitment to switch to Olympic recurve about 3 months ago, and she is not only is she a fierce competitor, but she's also a great person. Crystal lives about 20 minutes from me. We shoot together very frequently, and I've seen firsthand how hard she pushes herself in terms of training, because she not only shoots arrows, she's also cross-training with swimming and other exercises to really keep herself in peak physical shape. She is going to make a run at Tokyo 2020, and she is going to be a very fierce competitor and very hard to contend with.
It was incredible to see her commitment to switch over, because she was so dominant in the women's compound divisions. And, from my side, I would see that quite often. Any major event that you went to, Crystal was basically, she was there, she was going to be on the podium, or if you were going to win the event, you had to go through her.
Yeah.
So to see her make the announcement that, her dreams and aspirations had shifted a little bit, and she really wanted to make a run at the Olympics. You got to think somebody like that with that sport mindset, and all the different athletic things that she does in her background, that for her, I firmly believe it's not a shock to me to even stretch to think that she's going to make it on the Olympic podium.
Absolutely. If anybody can do it, it's Crystal. And the best evidence of that is that she only started shooting compound 3 years ago. And
Right.
yeah, so I can remember from a personal perspective, I can remember hanging out with Crystal. A bunch of us got together a few years ago for dinner, and she was going to her first indoor World Cup in Morocco and saying, okay, this is my first big event. She self-funded to that event. It was a big financial commitment from her and her husband. And she was like, I'm betting on this. I can do it. I'm going to be good at compound. And man, she went out there, and 3 years later, she's world number 2. So if anybody can go out there and be fierce and be a real strong contender for Tokyo 2020, it's Crystal.
Yeah, she makes the commitment to do it and puts in the effort, and she's gifted as well. So I think we'll see some great things out of her coming in the future. Good shot of Braden Galantine, Paul Tedford there. Didger Breton.
Braden's given us the wave, so he is such a strong contender, and he makes a really aggressive shot. I hope we get to see him shoot a little bit today, because if you'll notice, he's very quick with his release and follow through. And I used to tease Braden a little bit when I worked with USA Archery and World Archery, and used to photograph Braden quite a bit at tournaments, and I could never catch his shot. And I used to tease him quite a bit that he was very tough to catch.
Yeah, you almost have to put it on video and do a screen grab to catch him.
Right, there were no flying arrows, so a lot of times photographers get these good shots. They can freeze an arrow in flight, and for some reason I could always catch Rio Wild's timing. I mean, I can't tell you how many shots of a flying arrow I could get out of Rio Wild, just something about the way his shot was timed.
Well, he's consistent.
He's very consistent.
Very consistent.
But Braden, good luck. I mean, I think in 5 years I didn't catch a single one from him. He is really quick and very aggressive, but it pays off for him. I was reading a statistic yesterday that he wins 70% of all his matches internationally, which is a pretty impressive statistic when you consider the level of competition that he faces internationally.
Absolutely. And when, last weekend there was a great interview by Steve Anderson at Nîmes, and his comment was, as a touring professional, if you can win 10% of the tournaments you enter, you're a global rock star.
Yeah.
10%. And so for a guy who's able to go up and win 70% of his matches, maybe you don't win the event, but you win 70% of the matches, that puts you in a really good position to take home, a podium or a win. Braden, of course, he set a couple of world records as well.
Absolutely. I mean, he's just an incredible shooter. And here we see Jesse Broadwater, and I just want to speak to an announcement that we saw yesterday from Jesse Broadwater and Chelsea Neville of the Pink Arrow Project. So, Chuck, I don't know if you saw this announcement. This is pretty cool that they've got a contest going here to raise money for charity.
I saw the announcement come out, but quite honestly, I didn't have a chance to play it and listen to the entire video. Tell us about it.
So it looks like Jesse and Chelsea, through the Pink Arrow Project, have set up a competition nationally for the JOAD Club that can raise the most money, which in the proceeds of that will be divided between the Pink Arrow Project, which is Chelsea raising money for cancer research, and then Jesse makes a donation through True Ball Excel to a foundation that they support also for cancer research. They're going to split all the proceeds, 100% of everything the JOAD clubs raise, to those two organizations, and the winning JOAD club will get a pizza party with a visit from Chelsea, Jesse, and Jesse hinted maybe a couple other pros as well. He said they'd set up a shooting and talking and whatever it is that club wants to do. So more details on the Pink Arrow Project on Facebook. You could check out if you happen to be friends with Jesse Broadwater. And Chelsea is one of those, she is just such a sweet kid out there. You always see her with her pink shirt on at tournaments, pink shirt, pink leggings, pink. She is a remarkable young competitor.
I was trying to grab her attention. I just saw her walk by, Chelsea. Jesse's actually fairly philanthropic.
Yes.
He donates an awful lot of his money. Now, Jesse does very well in the archery industry, and he's one of these guys who can really do some amazing things. And with his ability to market his products and his name and his likeness, he has donated several times to different projects. One of the things I donated to last year was back home in his home state of Pennsylvania here, for an autism awareness thing.
Mm-hmm.
So Jesse, it's not it's not a stretch to think that he would be involved with something like that. And it's just great to see, that kind of a project take off. Great shot of Steve Anderson there.
Steve is one of the, not only is Steve a great competitor, but he is known as one of the funniest guys out there.
He really
Always has a joke and is always ready to get everybody laughing.
And it looks like we're about ready to get rolling here. These guys are going to tighten up, and you're going to see the expressions change and see who moves on. So Dave Cousins is going to go up against, I think that's Jack Bennett. Pogny is going to, Cousins and Pogny are going together. Kendall Woody is going to go up against Chance Bobeth. That should be a really good match.
TJ Strachowski, who is, I believe, shoots here out of the Lancaster Joad Club, is going to shoot against Michael Braden, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, young versus old there. Michael Braden is a multi-time national champion on the 3D Tour. Garrett Arisman is going to go against Mike Schlosser, Mr. Perfect. That ought to be an interesting match there. Really strong archers on both sides. What do we got in women's?
So we've got some good matches on the women's recurve side. We've got Lenola Pritchard, who was the U.S. Olympic team alternate last year, facing up against Miss Casey Kaufhold. Very exciting match there. Sarah Gusa is going to shoot against Roxanne Rai, and you may recognize Roxanne's name. She was formerly Roxanne Ryman, and she is she's the head coach for the Halls Arrow Joad Club up in Manchester, Connecticut. So we have some exciting brackets there. We're going to return to that women's recurve bracket in just a moment and see who's shooting where. And right now we've got Laura Bennett shooting up there, and a little tough to tell who her competitor is there, but she is a fierce competitor. There we've got Miss Rai. We saw her for just a minute. Now we're back on the men's pro side, and there is Sergio Pagne. And of course he is from Italy, and just not only a fierce competitor. There you can see him face to face with that may be his competitor on his left. It's a little tough to tell, but a really nice guy when you talk to him. He's a very kind person. He's a total class act.
The Sultan of Smooth, we call it.
The Sultan of Smooth, correct.
I'm excited to see when I was looking through, I'm just kind of scrolling through some of the results here. In the Women's Open Pro, Katie Bordwell, she's a young girl from my home area back home in Tully, New York. She advanced. Danielle Reynolds advanced as well. Christy Collin advanced over Jamie Venata, which is kind of a surprise, really. Jamie's, she's got a resume that would just dominate most men's divisions. Kara Kelly also advanced. Paige Gore advanced over Sarah Lance. Samantha Brenzel, also from near my hometown back in New York, she advanced over Linda Ochoa Anderson. That's Steve Anderson's wife.
Big upset there.
That is actually a huge upset in my book. No slight against Samantha. Samantha's an excellent shot, but Linda's international experience really, I felt, should have carried her through that match pretty well. Holly Larson advanced over Sharon Carpenter. Sharon's mostly a 3D shooter, so that's not a huge shock to me. And Emily McCarthy, which is Dan McCarthy's wife, also advanced. And now we see the guys changing lines here. Good shot of Levi Morgan, and you can see Levi has come back to Matthews. That was a huge announcement for those guys.
Yes, that was big news this year.
Yeah, Levi and Samantha, they have a TV show, and of course Levi's been dominant on the tournament scene, the 3D world and the target world. He's an indoor national champion in the NFAA. He was a finalist in Vegas. They both signed a 10-year contract with Matthews, and the archery industry is really unheard of.
Almost unheard of. I mean, actually, it is unheard of, Chuck.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't think it's ever been done
I
before.
don't think anybody's done it before, and it really speaks to the brand value that they feel he can bring. And here we've got Casey Kaufhold, and she's shooting again against Lenola Pritchard. Now, Lenola trains full-time at the U.S. Olympic Training Center, and Casey, of course, is a student as well as being part of the team here at Lancaster Archery Supply. So, I think it's interesting to see how dominant Casey is becoming when you consider that archery is not her full-time job. She's a student, and of course, like any young woman, I think, really just focusing on pursuing her education. We see a little bit of a face there from Casey, but I'm not sure if we're still in practice here, Chuck, or if they're scoring. I think this may be the first match for the women's recurve division.
Yeah, I think this was the very first end. So we'll start to see some things. So there's a great shot of Chance there. Look how steady. It almost
Just
looks
like a rock.
Looks
It
like
looked
a
like it was
freeze frame. Looks like a
frozen.
photograph.
Yeah.
Chance is well known for having one of the longest, most steady holds in the game. The downside is when he misses big. The upside is he rarely misses. He just pounds the center out of the targets.
And part of archery too, we talked about not just, form and execution, which of course is the most important thing, and knowing how to manage aiming and pressure. But a lot of this too, when you start to get into head-to-head match play, there's a lot of, we don't want to say head games that go on, but certainly there's some tactical pieces to how to shoot a match. There's always that little bit of, intimidation factor that some archers carry with them, and it's up to that underdog shooter or that other archer to be able to overcome that when they're competing.
Right. One of the things, maybe if we could get one of the cameras to pan down to around the target 46 kind of a area, you can see there a good contrast between the single spot targets and the triple spot targets that these archers are using.
Yeah, we'd love to see that, so I'd love to speak a little bit to the targets that some of the recurve shooters are using. Basically, if you folks at home can see, we've got the target that looks like just a single bullseye, sort of the Olympic style target, and that is a 40 centimeter target face. And especially a lot of the youth division recurve shooters, but even many of the adult recurve shooters, and some of the youth compound, I'm not sure, here at Lancaster if they allow them to use it. I know in NAA they do, depending on your age. But that 40 centimeter target is a 10 scoring ring target. So the benefit, for a lot of recurve archers making the choice, do I shoot a 3 spot or do I shoot a single spot? The advantage to the single spot is you've got 5 more scoring rings. So if you think there's a chance that you may miss out to the side,
there's a
on
great
the single
shot
spot,
on target 47, exactly
yes,
what you're talking about.
You've got some contrast there. You can see that if you think there's a chance you might miss one of those smaller targets on the vertical 3 spot, you can take your chances with the single target. And while there's a lot of, recurve archers will tell you, there's a lot of room there to move, right? You're going to see a lot of sight movement on that target. So there's a lot of room that for some archers in their sight picture presents a bit of a problem on the single spot. But, lesson here myself, right? Yesterday in competition, I made a bad shot and I shot a 5, and I was very thankful that I had 5 extra scoring rings to score on.
Those extra rings there
Yes.
to play with.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and what Teresa is alluding to on the 3 spot or the triple face, where you have 3 vertical faces there, that outside ring, that blue ring, is 6 points. And if you get outside that, it's a 0.
It's a miss.
It's a 0. And if you're shooting a single spot, you've got another 6 inches of space there. That you can pick up a few extra points.
And we're always happy when we pick up extra points in archery, because I'll tell you what, when you it's such a game of precision. It's such a game of pressure. And when you're shooting on the line at a big event like the Lancaster Classic, you really want to make sure that you balance that excitement that you have for the game and that passion that you have for shooting the middle with the need to sort of keep your cool and be really calm and steady when you need to. And it looks like we're going to have a treat here in a minute. Chuck is bringing in a guest commentator into our booth, so we'll see who's going to join us in just a minute here.
I went and grabbed Louis Price.
Hey, Louis, welcome. Good to have you with us.
And do we have Louis on the mic here?
Before that. First of 4 scoring ends. First to score 4 scoring ends.
So we are taking a look here at the men's. It looks like that's the men's open line, and looks like these guys are just waiting to head out there and score. To start their first shots. This may be the first scoring end for this pass. For this next set of matches. And we've got the young compound women here. I think we just saw Brianna Theodore. There's Dave Cousins at the Men's Open Pro. And I think we're ready to rock.
Hey, Louis.
Hey, how are you?
This is Louis Price. Louis shoots out of a local club up in our area back home, Heritage. Yep. And I saw you made the shoot off this morning, but now you're a spectator.
Yeah, no, I went against Steve Anderson, and he just shot perfect score. So I dropped 1X. So I can't complain really, but he just shot a little bit better.
So I apologize to the viewers at home, the people who are listening. I'm going to make you repeat that because I didn't have your mic turned up loud enough there.
No problem.
So you were in the shoot-off this morning. You went up against Steve Anderson.
Yep, and it was good for the first 2 rounds, and then I dropped 1X, and he just cleaned it. So gotta give it to him for shooting a perfect score, and I dropped one.
Yeah, it was a pretty solid advance. So as we were talking about some of these other guys that are out here, tell us about your experience here at the Spooky Nook facility. What do you think?
I mean, it's great. It's a big facility, but I mean, the lighting is actually pretty good. It's not too dark, so I can't complain. I mean, both sides run smoothly, and it didn't take us that long to shoot, so it wasn't too bad. But it was fun. It was always fun here.
Yeah, it's always a great event. Now, you've got a bunch of other kids that have come down from your dad's shop. Now, you and your father and your mom run an archery shop and a training program, Heritage Archery,
Yep.
Heritage Raptors up in upstate New York. How many kids you got down here with you this weekend?
Oh, we got at least, I'd say 6 or 7.
And how are they all doing? Did a lot of them make the cut this weekend?
Yeah, honestly, Brianna went into a 1-arrow shoot-off today, lost by just a little bit, and then Owen Reed is in the shoot-off right now still.
Yeah, we
shooting.
saw a shot of Owen earlier, and I know he's been shooting really well.
Oh,
We
yeah.
shot with him this weekend. And
Yep, no, he's doing really well. And then some of our other kids didn't make the cut, but they shot pretty well for the first time coming. I think one of the kids that came with us this year's his second time. Everybody else was the first. So it was.
So it's a big experience for
Yeah,
them.
yep.
Yeah,
And a lot
that's
of them
a
are
big
going to
experience.
Vegas too, so
Oh,
it'll
good.
be a good warm up.
Good training for them to get into that event.
Exactly.
Well, awesome. Louis, I'm sorry you didn't make the cut or didn't make the advancement
That's
through the
okay.
round, but losing to Steve there's no slouch there. Steve's a pretty solid guy.
Yes, great guy
and,
too. Great guy.
Well, thanks for swinging by the booth, man. I really appreciate
no
it.
problem.
We'll see you on the road. See you in Vegas.
Exactly.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Louie.
Thank you.
So here we see Mackenzie Brown. We're back on the women's recurve line, and next to her, Alicia North, that new standout we told you about from North Carolina. And let's see how she's doing here. And Alicia is executing nice, strong shot. She looks really good. Mackenzie, long hold time on this shot. Mackenzie's very physically strong. She smiles. She takes off a little pressure there. She knows what's on the line, which is a $1,000 top prize in the women's recurve. And here we've got Alicia next to her. And Alicia, again, this is only her third competition ever. Very clean, nice shots that she makes. Here we've got Jesse Broadwater on the line next to Dan McCarthy. Behind him, there's Bridger Deaton. And look at Jesse, just super steady, this guy.
Now, Jesse new to the Matthews line as well. You'll remember that Jesse Broadwater has been with Hoyt essentially his entire career.
Right.
16 years he was with Hoyt. He switched to Matthews this year as well. This is his third major event since making the switch. He just got back from France as well, and that bow that he's shooting, the airline didn't get it delivered to him in time. He got that bow at 11 o'clock at night, left the next morning to fly right back up here. So didn't get really any practice time with that particular bow before he made the trip back up here. And to see how far he's advanced and how well he shot yesterday just speaks to his experience and his ability.
So now it looks like these archers are just wrapping up their first 3 arrows of this pass. So we're going to see in a few minutes, we're going to get some scores up on the board and see who's going to be advancing. Who's going to be ahead. And we've got some good matchups. So looking at the women's recurve division right now, who's playing? We've got Gabriela Bayardo from Mexico, who is Mike Schlusser's significant other, who we talked about a little bit earlier. She's shooting against Laura Bennett, who is our Project Runway contestant. Lenola Pritchard shooting against Casey Koffold. We've got Shaban Saragusa shooting against Roxanne Rayi, and Alicia North against number 1 seed Mackenzie Brown. So we've got an interesting field of play here.
Archers to the line.
And it looks like there may have been, I'm hearing archers to the line.
May have been a delay. Oh, back
Nope,
behind the line,
sending
guys.
them back.
Yep. Must have been a delay on that last arrow. They let that archer get that last arrow off.
Correct, because there are no equipment failures in elimination round matches. And so, you know, an equipment failure in qualification rounds is when something goes wrong with your bow and you are able to let a judge know that something's wrong with your gear, and you're able to get an opportunity to miss up to 2 ends of competition to go repair your equipment and come back and reshoot those ends. But those equipment failures are not normally permitted in head-to-head match play scenario because you know, I think for a number of reasons, but of course not the least of which is it really affects tournament timing. So very interesting to see that there was some form of a delay that allowed an archer to shoot after the clock, but nonetheless, here we go. We're going to head down and shoot score the first arrows of this pass. And again, some archers, depending on where the cuts were made in different divisions, you've got some archers who are shooting a 1/8 match right now. Some archers, you know, for example, the women's recurve are in a quarterfinal already.
Yeah, because those fields weren't quite as big. They started with a smaller bracket.
Correct.
Now, again, if you're watching at home, obviously you're watching on the Lancaster YouTube channel, and live scoring can be tracked through archers.com. That's spelled RCHERZ, archers.com. And you can click on all the different classes and all the different scoring brackets to see your favorite archer and to see who's progressing through what. And that live scoring brought to us by Dead Center Archery Products. They're new on board this year. Again, this is the Lancaster Archery Classic 2017. We are at Spooky Nook Sports Facility in Pennsylvania, just outside of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. My name is Chuck Cooley, and I'm here with the fabulous Teresa Johnson.
Thank you, Chuck.
she was all worried about her headphone messing up her hair this morning. So
Yeah, maybe a little.
it was a little early start. You know, we had to be down here at 7 o'clock to see all this kick off, and it's amazing that they're able to get this entire operation, get all these brackets done, and you can see that this year is a different format that than we've had in years past. You know,
Correct.
we've always had a Thursday night line, a Friday qualifying, and then we would do all the brackets and everything. We would shoot them all off on the last day and get everything done. So now with this new schedule, there's only 1 day of qualifying. Boom, get it done, get it over, and then we have a full day of elimination matches, and then tomorrow we'll come back and we'll do this all again, and we will do the finals in the shoot-off style.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to see just the very high level of competition, and just that small change in format has really, you know, I think just underscored the point that this is a world-class event. You know, just over to the left of where Chuck and I are sitting, we've got a finals venue set up you know, I mean, absolutely, in terms of this venue, I mean, this is going to rival start to rival the production that we see in Vegas, frankly, Chuck. I mean, this is an incredible event.
Yeah. There's nothing, I think, that touches this other than Vegas in terms of production level. I think the participation is about a third of what Vegas is, but the production level is right on par. So I'm looking at some of the results. If we look at the Women's Open Pro Division, after the first end of scoring, Madison Rutowski is beating Katie Bordwell 31-28, and that's a pretty substantial lead. Danielle Reynolds is over Erica Jones by 2 points. Jamie Venata up by 2 points over Christy. Sarah over Kara by only a point. Sarah from Denmark, Kara Kelly, of course, from the USA. Kara she's got a room full of 3D trophies. Sarah Lance, we don't have a score turned in yet from Paige. I don't know if there's an electronic issue there. They must be calling an arrow because only 2 of those arrows have been turned in. Holly Larson over Sharon Carpenter. Brianna Theodore.
So we've got some scores also, and we got some scores also here on the men's recurve side. So Brady Ellison ahead of Devin Purcell from Canada. Brady leading 32-27. Butch Johnson ahead of Jake Kaminsky by a point. Joe McGlynn leading Brad Fulsang by a whopping 6 points. That is going to be a tough deficit to come back from.
That's a big hill.
Yeah, and so this actually helps to underscore one of the differences between the Lancaster Classic and many other target archery style tournaments indoors, is that we are not using what's called the set system. So if you happen to watch the Olympic Games or you've seen target archery match play before, you might be saying, well, hey, wait a second, don't they get, they shoot three arrows and then the winner gets 2 points or the loser doesn't get any points and you have the chance to come back. Well, in this event, things are a little bit different. This is cumulative. So you get somebody who starts to really, first of all, you have no room for a bad shot.
Nope.
And secondly, you get somebody who starts to build a small lead and get, especially here's where confidence and the mental game come into play. You start to get a little confidence, you can really run away on your opponent. So we're seeing that, for example, in some of these other men's recurve matches. Zach Garrett up 2 points ahead of James Vaccaro. Colin Klimacek leading Scott Rissinger by 33-30. Jason Pfister again leading Glenn Thomas 32-31. Pfister has been a real force in this competition. Mikkel Plummer 32-29 over Matt Requa, who is a full-time archer at the U.S. Olympic Training Center. Crispin Duenas with a 30 ahead of Lancaster's own Dan Schuler. So we get some tough competition in that division right now.
Right, now I'm going to look over at the men's Open Pro. So this is the men's senior Open Pro. So these are the guys that are 50 years old, and of course we see a great shot of Tony D. Wild
And D, man, I'll tell you what, just like his sons, Rio and Logan, he is a force. D has been around for a long time competing. He's now shooting in the senior or masters division, depending on which style of archery you're looking at. And D is a class act along with his sons. He has really been a mainstay and just a true gentleman, a true role model in terms of sportsmanship and archery. There's not a bad thing to say about this guy. We want to just turn our attention back really quick and talk about the women's recurve division because we have some surprises going on over there. So first of all, Gabriela Bayardo with a big lead over Laura Bennett right now, 28-22 after the first end of match play. Lenola Pritchard just 1 point on Casey Koffold. Casey's right behind her and shooting hot this morning. So that's going to be a match to watch. Shaban Saragusa, she is leading Roxanne Riley by 3. And here's the big one, folks. Alicia North, who we told you about a few minutes ago, who was our surprise into this competition. Only 3 archery competitions ever under her belt, leading Olympian Mackenzie Brown 29-27. That is a remarkable thing to see. And so we're back over here taking a look at what the cameras are showing us. We got Bridger Deaton and Dan McCarthy. I think that's Dan McCarthy. Nope, maybe not. But we had Bridger Deaton there, and I apologize to whoever that was that I thought he was Dan McCarthy and he wasn't. It looks like they are just wrapping up D. Wild with what I think is his last shot. And you notice there are some similarities between the way D shoots and the way his sons Rio and Logan shoot. There's a very decisive finish to that shot. When the shot's gone, the shot's gone. And now it looks like we've got the next archers coming up to the line to put some arrows downrange. Let's see what they're doing. So I think we're watching the men's Open Pro again, and Stefan Hansen from Denmark is up on the line right now. We can't quite see who he's shooting against, but Stefan has been one of the winningest shooters out there. He is absolutely dominant. He's a young man. I think he's just 21, 22 years old, and top world ranked shooter from Denmark. Just a very, very fierce competitor. And there we're seeing some of the men's masters or senior compound archers. You've got Matt Hopkins on the left-hand side. Got a gentleman with some pretty fierce ink there on his right. And we're going to see how these guys do. There's Stefan again. Let's see how he does. He can really hold for a long time. This is a shooter who's very, very steady under pressure. He's been shooting on the international circuit a long time. Boom. Very decisive. And again, he's glassing that just to see where that's going.
answer on later. I've got lights up here.
So we've got some of the men's open division here, and in the meantime, let's take a look at some of these men's open pro matches and see, the women's open pro, and see how they're doing. So taking a look here at the women's open pro, these ladies are in their 1/8 round. We've got Madison Rakowski leading Katie Boardwell by 3. Danielle Reynolds ahead of Erica Jones by 2 points, and that's a really interesting match. Jamie Venata back in the game against Christy Collin, leading her by 2. We get some really interesting. Sarah Sonicson from Denmark could be a really tough competitor.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with Sarah's scores and her history.
So she's world ranked number 3, I believe, right now, Chuck. She's a really tough competitor. She's been doing very, very well in all of the world archery events.
We have a Robin Hood here.
Look at that.
Look at that.
So let's talk about a Robin Hood, Chuck. So this is when an archer splits essentially their arrow with another arrow, making a perfect shot. You may remember this sequence from the movie Brave, right, where Princess Merida splits that arrow down the middle. Well, that's exactly what this archer did. And what many people at home may not know is that in archery, it's considered very bad luck to separate your Robin Hood. You're supposed to keep those together, and I don't know why that is. Like, maybe you'll never be consistent again if you pull those apart. But I will tell you, a certain Olympian who I know pretty well has a collection of Robin Hoods that are not to be touched under any circumstances.
I have a similar collection at home hanging off some antlers. And yeah, I mean, it was kind of cool when you did those. I actually did one on the road when I was at a tournament, and I had to take it apart to get it in my bow case. Kind of had to wiggle it back together when I got home to put it back on display. Now that archer, she will score, or he will score, wherever that leading arrow is in the target face, which I think we saw on the other camera angle was in the 10. It split the 10 ring. So both arrows will be scored as a 10 because that leading arrow is in the 10 ring. So they will get that higher score. It's not counted as a 0 or a loss of points in any way. Kind of excited to see how these these Masters Open Pro scores are going to roll in. Benton Christensen over Tony Harbaugh. Tony is who we were looking at there next to D. Wild. And one of the things I was going to mention on D, I think this year, I'm almost positive, will celebrate his 30th year as a professional archer.
That's amazing, Chuck.
He's one of the OGs in the professional archery world. But I think it's this year. He's a 30-year guy.
So we've got some scores starting to come in the different divisions from this second end of this match.
From the second end, yeah. So in the Masters Open, we've got Benton and Tony are tied. It was 62. That's going to be a great match. Tom Koblenz and Mike Leiter. So those two guys have also been around in the senior game for years and years and years. Mike Leiter, one of the most respected men in the field archery game, only up by 2 points over Tom. Tony Tazza, who's fairly new to the senior pro ranks, over John Vazzi, only by a point. Tony shooting for Hoyt, John Vazzi, a PSE guy. Tony was actually the rep here in PA, who's just retired and decided to go full-time pro. Roger Willett is tied with Darren Collins. Darren Collins, he's one of the guys. I think he's got a super slam in archery. He's killed an amazing number of animals. Roger Willett, I call him my hero. He's tied up with Darren. Todd Schultz, Douglas Monteleone. There has to be a problem with that scoring, or he had an incredible issue, shot the wrong target or something. He's only being scored as an 11 on that end. 64 to 41. So I don't know if that's a scoring error or if he had a mechanical issue. We call him Dr. Doug. He's one of the guys that shoots in a tie everywhere he goes.
Yeah, we see in his archer's profile there. He's got a suit and tie going.
Yeah, he wears a tie every time he shoots. He's a great guy from up in the Buffalo, New York area. He's been a finalist in Vegas and generally does really, really well at this event as well. So I'm kind of surprised to see what's going on there. Dwayne Price is leading Paul Penrod. Dwayne also, he's on the leaderboard constantly wherever you go. wins an awful lot of indoor and outdoor tournaments. He's an exceptional senior archer.
And just such a nice guy. And let's take a look real quick now at the Women's Open Pro scores. So we've got Madison Rakowski leading Katie Bordwell 63-59. Danielle Reynolds and Erica Jones tied. Erica fought her way back on that last end, and she is not going to go easily, folks. She is, very tenacious shooter, and look out when she gets her game face on. Christy Collin is leading Jamie Van Natta by a point, and of course Erica, Jamie, Christy, and someone who's missing here this weekend, Diane Watson, really traveled together for quite a number of years as World Cup and World Championships team members and friends. We've got Sarah Sonicson leading Cara Kelly by 2. Paige Gore up on Sarah Lance by 2. Linda Ochoa ahead of Samantha Brinzel, 62-60. Holly Larson and Sharon Carpenter. Sharon, of course, a standout on the 3D circuit. Those two are tied at 63, and Emily McCarthy and Brianna Theodore also at 63 all.
In the men's Open Pro division, Stefan Hansen now. Again, we've got a scoring issue here, and I wasn't watching that match on camera, so I can't tell if it's a mechanical issue or a scoring issue, or if those archers actually did not get their arrows off. But Stefan Hansen is up by 10 right now over Lewis Holmes, so we want to check in on that. They're on target 18, and then Logan Wild over Bridger Deaton, who didn't post a score at all for that end.
So we don't know quite what he shot.
Yeah, so Steve Anderson tied with Sam right now, Randy and Jesse. Randy's actually leading Jesse by a point there. Jesse dropped an 11 in his first end. You can see he shot a 32. Keith Trail, who came out of nowhere for qualifying and dropped a 57. We haven't seen Keith in a while, and he just announced his presence with authority yesterday. He's up by a point over Shane Wills. Kelsey, 66-64 over Michael. Paul's beating Jeremy by a point as well. Dan McCarthy up by 3 over Adam Gibson, who posted a 29 on the last end. Chris Perkins and Jacob tied. Richard Jackson, Dustin Bounce. Braden is winning his match over Matt Sullivan. Levi Morgan is trailing, surprisingly, to Chris Schaff by a point. Sergio is tied with Dave. Chance is up by 4 over Kendall. Kendall missed a couple 11s, you can see in his first end, or his first couple ends. Michael Braden is leading, and Mike Schlosser is also leading Garrett Erisman, but surprisingly only by a point. So Garrett's having a really, really good day.
So I'm hoping the cameras might be able to find Connor Kaufhold, because this kid is lighting it up out there right now. So in the youth recurve male division, Connor has a 10-point lead over Jay Ozip.
He's on target 46.
Yeah, so he is just doing great, and he had shot a 572 yesterday. I believe I've got that right, for a qualification score, which is just remarkable for a young man his age. Again, brother to Casey Kaufhold and son of Rob and Carol. There we've got Casey Kaufhold, his sister, and she's got her hands full with Lenola Pritchard, but Casey is holding her own against the best, one of the world's best archers. Casey just proving herself a world-class competitor. So we've got Brian. In the meantime, in the recurve male division for youth, we've got Joseph Perez leading Brian Bullis by 4. Timothy Chung up 5 points over Gabriel Carl, and Reese Wilson Poynton 62-51 over Noah Miller, who I had the pleasure of shooting with yesterday. Really nice young man.
Looking over at the bow hunter scores. Now, bow hunter is a different type of equipment setup. You see these long freestyle bows like what we're looking there at on screen right now, with the long stabilizers and the sights and everything like that to balance the bow. In the bow hunter division, all of that stuff is reduced. You're supposed to be basically using the same equipment that you would use to take a field when you're hunting. So short stabilizers, no magnification. You can use a pin or you can use multiple pins, but no movable sights or anything like that. You can still use a handheld release, but it's limited equipment. And these guys are shooting scores that are just incredible. They're absolutely on par with some of the freestyle guys. If you look at their scores after the first couple of ends, Caleb Kerstetter is winning 64-63 over Christopher Wegner. He's a guy that's from my home area. Those guys are laying down 32s, 33s, 31s with bow hunting gear. It's a very, very tough division. Chris Dake is winning over Jonathan Purdy. Justin Clark, 63-60 over Carlos Ferrario. And Chris Valaire over Tim Ewers, 65-59. And that was after the second end, and right now they're up scoring the third end. So we're going to have some changes in the results here in just a few minutes.
And speaking of changes, Chuck, we do have one update for you. So in the women's recurve, we had a score displaying incorrectly. Mackenzie Brown was leading Alicia North in the first end, 27-25 in the women's recurve division. So after two ends, Mackenzie was leading 58-52 over North. Again, certainly an impressive national competition debut for North regardless. Roxanne Rai leading Siobhan Saragusa 60-59. Really strong performance by Roxanne. Casey Caulfield was tied with Lenola Pritchard going into this end, and all eyes are on Casey right now. This young woman has really distinguished herself. We see Connor Caulfield up on the screen right now, her brother, with a pretty strong-looking target there. That kid has been on fire lately, and again, I can't underscore enough the importance of having a training partner living in the same house with you, especially when you're sister and brother, and there might be a little friendly sibling rivalry going on.
I'm not sure it's not so friendly sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm sure they probably get after each other pretty good. They're both great kids, but both that competitive fire. Now, and I think that comes honestly, too. I mean, there's a lot of people who don't know or don't recognize or remember that Rob was kind of the man when he was a young guy on the line. Mm-hmm. I mean, he did the whole national thing, and Rob was...
And I believe a national team member. I could be wrong about that, but I thought he was a national team member.
Yeah, he was definitely the man in the archery game for quite a while.
Yeah.
I've seen some old pictures of him with a white uniform and the big fro and the big hair.
I take no responsibility for Chuck's comments about Rob's big fro right now.
It's actually really great to look back and you see, how a guy like Rob has, he was committed to the industry and committed to the sport early on, and now what he's doing for the industry and for the sport here.
Last year when we weren't at this shoot because of the weather, but a few weeks later, we had the pleasure of attending the Kinsey show, which is not far from here in Pennsylvania, and we stopped here at Lancaster Archery Supply, and we were very fortunate that Rob was on hand and kind enough to offer my husband Butch and I a tour of his shop and the workshop and so forth. And Rob was talking with great pride about how he got his start in business and the impact that his wife Carol has on the business that they now manage, and showed us a lot of the original building and where they expanded. And it's just amazing to see the growth that this company has had over the years under the steady guidance of Rob and Carol, who, to be honest, I think they are so well respected in the archery industry. They have showed so much kindness to so many people, and knowing him, he's a humble guy, and I think he would blush if he heard us going on like this. But can't say enough. And last year, certainly when we had the snowy conditions here, and there was a lot of chatter on social media about it, the number of people getting up on Facebook publicly to support Rob and Carol and the way that they handled the tournament here last year, I think the incredible attendance that we see this year is a testament to how well loved and respected the Caulfield family really is in archery.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I ran into Rob last year, as I was pulling in to do the broadcast, and he had been up all night on a tractor outside plowing snow. No cab or anything on the tractor. I mean, it's just him and some Carhartts and a heavy hat, trying to clear the lot so that people could get in and try to do what they do here.
Yeah, the
commitment is unbelievable. And it's not just Rob and Carol. It's that infectious
staff. Yes.
Yeah, it just breeds through their entire staff. They're like family. He literally treats them like family. And some of these people have been here for decades and have a great career and a great life. And their commitment to the game is just as strong as Rob and Carol's. So we're getting ready to complete another end. Let's take a look at some quick scores here. I see they've got some updates here. So Lewis Holmes, surprisingly, up by a point over Stefan Hansen in the men's pro. That would probably be the biggest upset if he could pull out that win. Stefan shot a 59 yesterday. He missed 111 out of 60
Incredible
arrows.
shooting. That kid is on fire right
He
now.
is absolutely on fire, and to watch him shoot. Logan Wild up a point over Bridger Deaton. Steve Anderson just up by a point over Sam. Jesse Broadwater tied. So let me see. Jesse would lose that match, though, if they tied again because he has the first dropped X. Keith Trail also tied with Shane Wills. Paul Tedford up by 2 over Jeremy. Dan McCarthy is leading his match. Pretty comfortable lead there going into this last end. Jacob Marlowe tied with Christopher Perkins. Dustin over Richard. Braden over Matthew. Chris over Levi. And Chris has got a 2-point lead, so it's probably going to go his way.
Schaff,
Yeah, unless he's one of the Montana boys, so those guys, imagine this is your home club where if you shoot a 450 on a Vegas round, you never miss the 10 ring and 45 arrows, a 450 will get you to the shoot off. There's so many really good shooters in that whole Montana gang that they're just the level of professionalism and ability up there is incredible.
On the camera right now, we've got Dan Schuler, and just want to point out how strong Dan is shooting right now. He, of course, is a former USA Archery resident athlete, now working here full-time for Lancaster Archery Supply. He recently had a young son. He and his wife, I believe her name is Maureen, and he's a dedicated family guy. He's a dedicated employee here at Lancaster Archery Supply, but also a very dedicated recurve shooter. And here he is still looking strong despite, I know, being a new dad as well as working full-time. This guy can't be getting a lot of sleep. And to have to put in the kind of practice you have to do to be on the top in recurve, that's a lot of arrows to be shooting.
Especially in this event when you've got world champions, Olympic champions. You're shooting against all of them. There's no room for anything less than perfect here.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about those men's recurve scores. So right now, Brady Ellison is up 96-84 over Devin Perceau. And we've got Jake Kaminsky leading Butch Johnson, 92-80. So it seems like there was a little issue there that Butch is struggling a little bit. Joe McGlynn up 93-82 over Brad Fulsang. And again, here's where you start to see what a cumulative match can do. If you have one bad end or one bad score, one bad shot, unlike set system, it does not forgive you. So here again, Zach Garrett over James Vaccaro, 92-87. He's got a pretty commanding lead. Colin Klimacek up 6 points over Rissinger. You've got Glenn Thomas leading Jason Pfister. This is the first time we've seen Jason down by 1 point. So Glenn could be the guy that knocks him out. We're not sure. Mikkel Plummer leading Matthew Requa. They are tied at 91 right now. But again, Chuck, as you said earlier, the first person to drop a score was Matthew Requa. So if this match did end up tied, Mikkel would take the win. And Crispin Duenas right now leading Dan Schuler again by 5 points. So you might say, well, 5 points doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're 3 ends in to a 4-end match and it's a cumulative score, there is not a lot of room to fight back unless your opponent has a really bad shot at this point.
Yeah, it's really hard to make that up. You almost got to pray for something bad to happen to your component.
Which, of course, we know these guys are class acts, and hopefully they're not doing.
Right. Looking over at some of the Barebow recurve guys, John Demmer up pretty handily, 81-74 over Mark Lynn. Scott Bills, 84-80. That's probably the tightest match in the group right now over Ben Rogers. Dwayne Martin, 83-78 over Fawn Gerard. And Bobby Worthington is leading his match over Richard Barker.
You know, we've got Colin Klimacek up on the screen right now, and Colin is such a tough competitor. We had the pleasure of talking with him yesterday, and so he finished 5th in the U.S. Olympic team trials for the men, which was a little disappointing for him. He's incredibly strong internationally as well as domestically. One thing about Colin that you may not know is he has decided to commit himself to service in the U.S. military, and so he'll be heading in, I think in April or May, he'll be enlisting. And such a strong competitor, but such a nice guy as well. Colin's always willing to talk archery with anyone. You can see he looks a little bit relieved on where that last shot may have landed. Conspicuously missing from this recurve men's last group here is Tom Stanwood. He was actually knocked out in the last round, which is a surprise. Tom has been, a real a standout and a bit of a dark horse contender on the men's recurve side. The past 2 Olympic team trials, he is a full-time attorney, Chuck. And to balance a full-time career as an attorney when you're competing against guys like Colin Klimacek and Zach Garrett, who've trained for a living.
They literally don't have a day job.
Right. They have no day job. They don't even, some of them take some classes here and there. They're not typically going to school full-time because archery is their job. And it's a tremendous advantage, but a lot of hard work that they do. Well, of course, for someone with a full-time job and a family, to compete against that is pretty tough. So Stanwood did share with us yesterday he's working on some stuff and he's excited about the upcoming season. So I think we're going to see a lot more out of him. But he's always a dark horse competitor who kind of sneaks in there. No one expects him. And then here comes the attorney laying down the 10. So I know we'll see more of him in Vegas.
Excellent. I was taking a look at some of the scores for the Youth Open female. I want really because I was wanting to check on my friend Marissa to see how she was doing in her match, and she's only down by a point going into this final score as they walk up to the target faces. Zenere Ross is pretty handily leading her match against Gracie Dedamore from the Lancaster Archery Academy. Alexis Rees is also handily winning her match up by 5. Valerie Atten over Sophia Howard only by 1, so that match could go either way. So the 2 that I kind of really want to track right there is Hannah Moose and Marissa Harding, and then Sophia and Valerie to see how that breaks through.
Yeah, absolutely. You got some really close scores. Now, over on the youth recurve male side, we wanted to check back in with those guys, and we see that Connor Kaufhold has kept his pretty commanding lead over Jay Ozip. So he's got an 86-74 lead going into the last end. Again, nothing is ever for certain in archery, and especially on the recurve side, because you have the clicker, which is, again, that metal blade that tells the archer when it's time to release. If the archer's timing isn't exactly on and the clicker clicks at the wrong time or doesn't click when it's supposed to, then you can have a really frustrated archer and potentially a miss. So that can really create some issues, and that's why, occasionally recurve matches can be thrown. But it looks like Connor has a pretty commanding lead. Brian Bullis, who's one of the leading youth recurve archers, I believe on the USA Archery side, he competes he'll be moving into the junior division soon. And Brian from Arizona, shooting 81-81 against Joseph Perez right now. So that's a very tight match and going to be an interesting one to watch. Brian really shot his way back on that one, where he was in a deficit situation against Perez. Gabriel Carl up against Timothy Chung by 1 point, and we've got Reese Wilson Poynton leading Noah Miller now 91-79. So Noah's got his hands really full on this next end.
Yeah, that's gonna. We've got. Looks like Jacob Sluzars over Owen Reed, 132-30. That was a pretty tight match. Both of those kids are great shooters.
And we've got some match results coming in right now from the women's recurve. And guys, we've got a big win over there. We've been following Casey Kaufhold, and she just upset Lenola Pritchard, 116-115. Casey, again, young enough to be shooting, I think, as a cub right now, shooting as in the adult women's division, 116-115 over full-time archer Lenola Pritchard. Gabriela Bayardo from Mexico, 113-108 over Laura Bennett from USA. And looks like we've got, if we take a look here, we've also got Siobhan Saragusa, 117-113 over Roxanne Rai, and Mackenzie Brown, 118-108 over Alicia North, who finished out strong with a 29 in her first national competition. Not bad, Chuck, for that young lady.
And these girls are all going to transfer into the medal match now. That's your top 4 right there.
Correct.
So you're going to have Mackenzie, Casey, Siobhan, and Gabriella. And as I'm looking over at some of the Youth Open male scores as well, they're starting to roll in and be finalized. Jacob Sluzars is going to take it over Owen Reed. Trevor Silverson's over Ethan Merrill. That was another tight match. Only 1 point separated those two. Eli Hughes over Braden Howes, 129-125. Tyler Heritage takes his match over Archer Merritt, 128. That's a tie ending score I believe, though, because Tyler dropped his 11 first, that he will be eliminated. Michael Herbert is going to win over Evan Clark, 130-125. Carson Sapp is going to move on. Carson comes out of George Riles' shop. Carson shoots for George Riles at the Archery Learning Center. Carson's done very well on the international stage.
Yes.
I think he just got back from France, and he's done very well in Vegas in the past. So it's good to see him moving on into the next round.
And he had a tough competitor in Seth Trahan. Seth actually shoots out of Connecticut, and a very skilled young archer has come up through the Bowman division, just a fierce young competitor. So good for both of those guys, and good for Carson to have that win at this point. Looks like we've got Alec Meyer, who came out ahead of Dane Johnson, 131-128. And, of course, Anthony Ferraro, 129 over Brody Halfhill at 127.
Right. It looks like he had a really strong ending. You know, when you finish with a 33, like I was looking at Carson's scores there, he only missed 111 that entire match. 33, 32, 33, 33. That's going to be a real good positive note for him to move on. I kind of want to see what the Women's Open Pro Division did, because there was some potential upsets there. So Madison Rutkowski took out Katie Bordwell. Erica Jones took out Danielle Reynolds. Jamie Venata took out Christy. Kara Kelly fell to Sarah. Paige Gore, nice strong finish, nice strong match for her. 131-128 over Sarah Lance. Samantha Brenzel moving on over Linda Cho Anderson. And Sharon Carpenter also moving on, 127-123 over Holly Larson. Emily McCarthy moves on in her match against Brianna Theodore, 129-127. And Emily finishing very strong with a pair of 33s. And now we have a shoot-off finishing up. I'm going to take a look here and see exactly who we've got going. It looks like it's going to be Jesse here.
Which is just fantastic if we get to watch Jesse in a shoot-off. Maybe not fantastic for Jesse, but certainly fantastic for the rest of us to see such a fine display of shooting. And by the way, we see Keith Trail in the shot there. So Keith was kind of absent for a little while. I think he had some sort of an accident, if I'm... Oh, and it looks, guys, we're going to cut out to our shoot-off right now. So, Chuck, can you take us through what we're seeing when we look at a shoot-off?
Well, in the last one, it was one arrow closest to center, and then if you hit the 11, and then you move on and shoot it again, and it went 3 arrows there. And I think we're going to see that same exact process here. So we've got, if I'm looking right, looks like we're going to have Jesse Broadwater and Randy shooting off. Keith Trail and Shane Wills will be shooting off, and Steve Anderson and Sam Wolthies will be shooting off to advance into their positions.
So that's pretty impressive, and so these guys
It's pretty surprising as well.
I mean, that's a very high level of competition, and just speaks to the caliber of shooter that you've got here this weekend. And again, you know, when we say the caliber of shooter, we want to be careful that folks don't feel like this is an elite event, that we're, you know, it's only the elites who can compete, because clearly we had a field of over 1,000 archers yesterday, many of whom are brand new beginners, people just getting into archery and coming out to fling some arrows and just have fun shooting for score. But for these folks who are competing for the top prizes, you really do have the absolute best in the field. And so these guys are going to go ahead and shoot an arrow and see who's closest to center. Now, when you're shooting under the lights and you're shooting in a shoot-off situation, you've really got to focus on balancing the quality of your shot with that pressure that you're feeling to hit the middle. Certainly when you see that dot, you know, from your sight floating on the middle of the target, there's a lot of pressure to try to hold that bow arm really steady and keep your bow very still to be very precise in the middle. But the reality is that the harder you try to keep that dot steady, sometimes that dot will move more because you're trying so hard to hold it still. And so for most shooters, there's a really good balance of shot execution and keeping their back tense so that they can keep moving through the shot, versus trying to keep their sight very steady on the target and balancing the two. Right now we're seeing the women's recurve line there. We've got Christy Collin and Jamie Vanetta, and back to Jesse Broadwater. and we're going to see quite a few shoot-offs right now.
Yeah, and with the shoot-offs here, it's not like you've got 4 ends to come
Correct.
back. I mean, this is it. This is it. You've got to make it. Every single one has to be as good as it can be. It looks like they're setting up quite a few different shoot-offs. There's Keith Trail giving the big nod. Shooting with Shane Wills. Now, Shane Wills, he was also a Hoyt shooter for years, and he switched over to PSE. So right now, the one of the things we were looking up is the exact wording of the rule here. So ties are broken by score, number of 11s, and then a 1-arrow shoot-off. 2 shots by score, third shot is closest to the X. So the first arrow, you can be eliminated on the first arrow. If you shoot a 10 and your competitor shoots an 11, you can be eliminated. If both of you shoot an 11, then you move on and you shoot a second arrow. And again, it's by score. If both of you hit an 11 or both of you hit a 10, or even worst case scenario, both of you hit a 9, you still would advance. And the third arrow is the final and ending arrow, and it is closest to center. And that's exactly what we wanted to do. There was a little pause there. We were kind of looking up that rule just to see exactly how that was going to play out and what we saw in that first end. So this is it right here. I mean, you're hoping that you can win it on the very first arrow, but all of these guys are so good, all of these competitors, that you can't count on your competitor missing.
No, absolutely not, and especially not at this level. Now take these two ladies, got Christy Collin and Jamie Van Natta.
Jamie Van Natta on the right, Christy on the left.
And these two ladies have been fierce competitors, also good friends for many years, teammates.
Oh, 20 years, easy.
Absolutely. They both grew up in the sport together along with Erica Jones, and they have just been very, very tough competitors. You know, it's interesting, especially when you see pairs of people who know each other very well, how well are they judging their competitors' game? How well do they know each other's routine and each other's faults? Again, when you go back to the mental game in archery right now, you have to only be thinking about the arrow you're shooting, your own mental game. And Christy executes a very decisive shot there. We'll have to see how that goes for her. Jamie typically has a longer hold time. She's very, very steady. She's a strong competitor physically and mentally. It looks like we may have a decision.
There's a handshake there, and Steve doesn't look very happy at all.
No, Steve does not look thrilled, so we'll have to see what the outcome is there.
I know with looking at the shot with Jamie and Christy now, Jamie, I've always considered her to be an extreme technician, right? So she's a student of the game.
Yes.
She's a student of her equipment. I think she knows her competitors better than some other people. And if you were to say, like in football where you're watching game film and you're trying to judge how your opponents are going to act, I think Jamie probably would, if you had to give an edge, Jamie would have a better feel for how Christy is feeling. Just because I think she's a little more technical archer. Very experienced, very skilled. One of the very few women that I know that can completely break down a bow right to the risers, nuts, bolts, axles. That's a thing that she really prides herself on, is being able to completely rebuild her gear from scratch without any help.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't speak very well to the compound women's side, not being as familiar with them, but I know on the women's recurve side, it's very common as coaches, we teach the archers to break their bows down and tune their own bows. So, from my perspective as a coach, all of my female students are taught from a really young age. They tune their bows with me or with their coaches so that they, if they get into a tournament situation, for example, where they show up and their bow doesn't make it, can they throw together a bow and tune it fast,
Right,
And fortunately, at least with the recurve bows, the bows are not quite as fitted to the archer as the compound bows are, meaning that there's a possibility of borrowing a bow and getting it set up quick. So the women and the men, any archer needs to be able to build a bow, tune it, and get their arrows flying fast. So as a coach, I think, I'm always happy when I see coaches who aren't moving sights for their archers. They're not
Yeah,
doing all the work
exactly.
for their archers because it doesn't help them. It doesn't teach them any independence. So it's always exciting to see an archer like Jamie, to your point, and many of the other female archers out there who can take their bows apart, put them back together. And Crystal Govan, in fact, is another one of those archers who's
She's
very
really
into
good.
working on
Yeah,
her
yeah.
gear and just does a beautiful job, whether it's compound or recurve. She knows her gear inside out, and it is a huge competitive advantage.
I think
for her.
there's I think it's much more common these days to see on the compound side the women, the elite women who really can be an excellent bow mechanic.
Yeah, you
They
have to
know
be.
their gear, they know their arrows, they can do all their own stuff, and I think it's a huge tactical advantage for them.
So we've got Keith Trail here. So Chuck, we were about to chat about Keith a couple minutes ago.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about where he's been? 'Cause we haven't seen a lot of him in a couple of years.
Well, you know, he retired from the military. He put 20 plus years in. He was a paratrooper, and you know, he packed parachutes and all this other kind of stuff, and was on the tour and working at the same time. And then
Wow.
he retired, and he and his wife bought a business, and they're working that full time, and it's an extremely successful business.
Good
So
for
it's
him.
taken him out of the tour just a little bit. But I think he's hit a point now where he can come back into the game. He can give it the time and dedication. And now Keith was no slouch. You know, he was on the U.S. team, and very, very good at what
Yeah.
he did. An exceptional archer. Shot for a few different companies, and it seemed like no matter what bow you put in his hand, he was very, very, very competitive.
And a very
He's
nice
been-
person as well. Really kind.
Yeah, and he's put his time in on the 3D trail. I think he's less into the target shooting than he was earlier on. He does a lot of the ASAs and things like that. And he came out and he shot a 657 as his qualifying score, and everybody was stunned because we hadn't heard from him in a while, and it considered him more of a 3D shooter. Now he's shooting against Shane Wills. Shane Wills is, we call him 5150 on the side. He's wow, they're giving that a good solid look with a light to make sure that's going to get the proper score. Shane just recently switched from Hoyt to PSE. He's probably best known as being one of Jesse Broadwater's traveling mates and best buddies. And it looks like we have a winner there. Shane Wills is going to advance. Big upset there, just looking at the qualifying score. So Shane is a finalist here in the past. I actually think he won this tournament years ago, early on. And they're going to go retrieve their arrows. So in a big upset there, Shane Wills knocks out Keith Trail.
Come on, guys.
And I think we're completed with shoot-offs. So now we'll be cutting the brackets one more time.
I mean, it looks like if we're running on time here, which it looks like we're actually just ahead of schedule or just about on schedule, it looks like we've got, after this, the Men's Open Pro and Men's Open 1/8, and then the Women's Open Pro, Masters Open Pro, Masters Open, Youth Open Male, and Men's Recurve quarterfinals.
One more shoot-off going on in the adult division.
There we go.
Big letdown there. Take another aim at that.
Nothing wrong with a letdown. So, you know, for folks at home, and you're wondering, well, why do these archers sometimes bring their bowstring back down to the bow? Again, Chuck referred to this as a letdown. You hear people say set down. Basically, it's that you feel that you don't trust the shot for whatever reason, or something felt funny with your equipment. And it's always better if you have the time, because remember that all these matches are being shot on a timer. If you have the luxury of time, you kind of want to try to set down if you can.
Yeah, you want to execute the best shot possible. So if you got time on the clock, do it. It doesn't feel right when you get to full draw. If it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't sit right, let it down, hit the reset switch, start it over, come back. You see it a lot. I see it a lot in recurve too. It's not just a compound.
Oh no, we do it a lot in recurve,
Yeah, so
especially
it's-
in indoor archery. You see archers let down 5-6 times in a single end.
I see it in recurve sometimes as a little bit of gamesmanship too. I've seen it
Yep.
in Vegas where they'll draw and let down and draw and let down just to kind of push the clock a little bit towards the other archer. It's kind of fun to see that bounce back and forth. A little harder with a recurve or with a compound to draw and let down 5 or 6 times, but with the recurves, I've seen that. That's kind of fun to watch. So now we're going to see some new faces being hung as we cut these brackets
For your
one more
target
time.
assignment, follow the target assignment on your scorecard, the unfilled out bracket. We'll have target assignment.
And so
on
what
it.
we're going to see, we'll start with the men's Open Pro, and we're into the eighths. So Logan Wild will be going against Lewis Holmes. Sam Wolthies will be going against Jesse Broadwater. Shane Wills, who we just saw advance through a shoot-off, will be going against Kelsey Johnson. Paul Tedford against Dan McCarthy. Jacob Marlowe, Dustin Bounce. Braden Gallanthine against Chris Schaff. Dave Cousins and Chance Bobeff. And Ted Strakalski against Mike Slosher. So that should be those should be some really, really great matches. What do you got over on your side?
So it looks like we're taking a look at what we've got going on. Oh, I apologize. My bracket is, I think they're still sorting out our brackets here.
Okay. I'll take a look at the women's side. The women's Open Pro, you're going to have Erica Jones going against Madison Rutkowski. Christy Collin against Sarah. Paige Gore will go against Samantha Brenzel. Sharon Carpenter will go against Emily McCarthy.
And now we've got the women's open division, and we've got Katie Flodzinski, who's going to lead, go against, it looks like she'll meet with Brenda Bond, and we've got Melissa McBride and Sophia Strachan.
Going into the men's open division, because this was another division that had 64 archers to cut, so those fields need to be pared down one more time. That's this will be the last cut for today, I believe, for these guys. So Ethan King will go against Cody Seitz, Robert Alfonso against Mike Campbell, John Wheeler against Robert McKeehan, Justin Hutchins go against Brent Qualls on target 3, Travis Tarsi and Charles Hunnell on target 4, William Jones, Ryan Reed, Paul Miller will go against Alex Burrell, and Anthony Bristow will go against Mason Dowell. Some of the other divisions have already been cut, some of the smaller divisions, and those fields are set for tomorrow for basically for the medal matches. When you have some of the smaller fields, we'll get it cut to 4 today, and then tomorrow is the medal matches for those guys. So in the senior open division, that'll be your bracket tomorrow. Will be Benny Parentau against against D. Wild, who won his match against Joe Kapp. Richard Thielig against Bruce Blyler, who Bruce won his match against Glenn Talley, and Richard won his match against John Freeman. So that's your final 4 in the senior open division, 60 and over. In the senior, I kind of want to take a look at that bow hunter division because it was so strong.
I know.
So many of those guys that come out here and do a great job and support this shoot, and Rob does so much to support that.
Yeah, so for the bow hunter division, you've got Caleb Kerstetter, who is going to advance and shoot against Jonathan Purdy. And Justin Clark will meet with Chris Villiers. So that's going to be a pretty tight division there as well.
How did we do in the Barebow, guys? John Demmer he advanced. Scott Bills also advanced. Dwayne Martin advanced over Fawn Gerard, and Bobby Worthington took out Richard Barker 113 to 102. So Bobby will advance into the medal matches for tomorrow. And
Dwayne Martin is a great person to chat about as well. He's a very impressive, very prolific barebow shooter. He is actually also a bow manufacturer, and he has won a number of titles in 3D. In both ASA and IBO. He's a world champion several times over, and in a very fierce competitor. We had the pleasure of watching him shoot yesterday, and he was just drilling it, and he was very serious. In fact, the cameras were sort of near him, and one of his competitors joked, "Oh, I think they're going to be filming you," and he said, "I don't want any cameras on me. I just want to shoot arrows." So he was not playing.
It's all business. In the Masters Open Pro division, now that should be final for tomorrow. Mike Leiter made it through. He And Tony Tazza made it through. Todd Schultz, Loxley Hutchins, Dwayne Price, Billy Hicks, Darren Collins, Benton Christian. Those guys are into the quarters.
So right now, just to let everybody know what we've got going on, so we've got a few divisions competing. We've got the Men's Open Pro and Men's Open shooting in the 1/8. And then for quarterfinal matches, you've got Women's Open Pro, Masters Open Pro, Masters Open, Youth Open Male, and Men's Recurve. So let's take a look at who's advancing on the Men's Recurve side, because there we've got several Olympians who are actually advancing, and right now it looks like we should have Jake Kaminsky shooting against Brady Ellison. Now, what a matchup that's going to be. And excuse me, I'm going to cut away to Paige Gore,
These three
Samantha
girls
Brenzel, and Erica Jones on the far left. So here's Samantha Brenzel at full draw, and she has fought her way through this bracket.
She looks good, too. She's been working her butt off this year.
Yeah, and by no means was she a crazy or unexpected upset, but she has had a tough bracket. And so anytime somebody works their way through a bracket that's really difficult, you have to give a lot of respect to that archer. So props to Sam Brenzel.
Samantha's won this event before.
Yeah, she is a tough shooter. We can see on social, from her social media posts, she's been practicing a lot lately. I believe her husband Kyle shoots as well, correct?
He does, yep.
Yep. And we've got Dave Cousins here up on the camera right now. Not
It's always
looking
so
thrilled.
hard to read Dave, though. I've seen him make that same face, and you walk down there, and it's an absolute donut inside out X.
Although, let's talk about that, Chuck, because for many of the top shooters, when you say, and again, I've had this question many a time at a tournament with my own husband, Butch Johnson, and I was like, oh, how'd you shoot, honey? Oh, terrible. And of course, then I look at his score, and, he's sitting in third or fourth in the toughest division in the country, and it's like, well, gee, us mere mortals would love to shoot your scores, right? But the reality is these women and men are as good as they are because they're tough on themselves. Mackenzie Brown had a wonderful conversation with us yesterday. I was asking her how she shot, and she said, I could have done better. And she said, I feel bad telling people that because people think it's false humility. But the reality is I know I could have done better. And so I'm being very truthful when I say it wasn't my best shoot, and I know I can do more.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Dave has such high expectations of himself, or any of these other shooters, whether it be the men, the women, the seniors, the kids. They all have such high expectations, and they know how good they can be. And so you look at the result of the arrow, and you look where the arrow is sitting in the target, and it might be dead center. But that archer knows that they did not execute a really great shot. It just happened to land really well.
Right now we're looking at Zach Garrett and Mikkel Plummer. And, of course, Mikkel is in the youth division typically, but shooting up in the recurve men's division, which is a pretty impressive thing for a young man to be doing, and making fairly strong shots.
He didn't look real happy about that last one there.
No. And he's shooting with top-knock Joad.
Zach looking strong.
Zach was looking strong. And Zach, again, he is that archer that won't be outworked. He may get outshot, but nobody will work harder than he does.
You can see to the left of the screen there, that's the senior open pro divisions, the 4 guys shooting off there. Dan McCarthy here. Dan always has such an interesting draw. He comes back nice and high, gets the shoulders set.
Very steady.
Look how
he was
stable
holding
he
like
is.
a rock there.
And he shoots like 70 or 74 pounds indoors or something like this. He shoots an incredible amount of draw weight. It looks like a picture. He's sitting so still.
Yeah, I always have so much respect for these shooters who look so still that we're not sure that the camera is operating properly, and then boom, you get the shot. It's interesting to see the different shooting styles. And yesterday when we had the camera on several different archers, you can see that some of them there's visible shake, there's visible tremor and movement in their sight, there's visible tremor in the stabilizer, and yet they managed to drill the middle. And then you got guys like Dan McCarthy, or women. And actually, I'll give a great example of this. Jamie Van Natta and Erica Jones, both over the years, I've noticed, very stable.
Probably
very
2 of the most
calm.
solid. Yeah.
And you really, Erica, I've had the pleasure of being the press liaison for the team at a couple of World Cups and World Championship events, and standing right behind her at a World Cup where she's, on the line for a medal. And Erica can hold steady for long periods of time, and it's amazing to see how mentally strong she is when she shoots. It's a nice thing to see her back in the game this weekend.
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned, the USA Archery, and even this event and World Cup events and things like this, and I use these events as study sessions, where I'll watch, the camera will zoom right in, you'll see a release or a bow, and you'll see how they're operating their hand, you'll see how the bow is set up, you'll see where the rest is, where they put their arrow through the riser, and I kind of use it as a training film. And I'll play it back and back and back and back and back just to kind of see what they're doing. And
Absolutely.
I remember watching Erica for quite a while to see how she did things, and watched, the very specific movement of her hand as she set up her release.
Yes.
And I learned quite a bit about how she does it just by watching. That's one of the advantages we have with this kind of technology and this setup and this commitment to the game, that Rob is doing here at Lancaster is, if you're at home, you run this on playback a few times. Look at that great shot.
What a beautiful inside out. I mean, that's gorgeous.
Yeah. You can learn quite a bit from this.
Yeah, it's funny. In recurve coaching particularly, we spend a lot of time replaying film from some of the great archers to demonstrate a concept to a student. And I myself found, yesterday as I was shooting and I felt like my release was a little bit lacking, went to YouTube and video of Korea's Choi Mi-sun to see, how strong she executed the shot, and it gave me a visual reminder to pull it together.
Mm-hmm. You can learn quite a bit. So I see we're getting a call on Shaft's arrow here. And one of the things you'll notice, and we mentioned this earlier, with the way that Larry trains all of his officials, is every arrow gets, 3 solid looks. They use a light. They want to give the archer every advantage possible. The term he used that I thought was very impressive was to protect the archer's score. Mm-hmm. And I had never heard that before, and I was really quite taken by it, that his commitment and his officials' commitment to make sure that at every possible opportunity they are protecting the highest score possible for the archer. If they've shot that point, they've earned that point. They give that arrow 3 looks. If any one of the 3 looks is remotely in, then it's in.
Yes.
They're not trying to call the arrow out. They're looking to try to call the arrow in to give that archer the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely.
And when you have a judging committee and you have an official committee that's that committed to protecting the score and protecting the game and the integrity of it, I think that speaks a lot to the kind of tournament that they're running here.
Absolutely. And, we did an interview yesterday with Sue Ludwig, whose husband, Doug, is also a judge here this week, and they both judge. And, it was really nice to talk to her about what she's, we asked her the question, what do judges wish? What do you as a judge wish that archers knew? And she said, we wish that the archers realized that we are here to help. There's nothing intimidating about asking a judge for, a question or asking for a little bit of help.
Right. I'm going to run through a couple of quick results here because they're starting to pop up on the screen. As we look at the Women's Open Pro, Erica Jones up pretty sizable lead there against Madison, 33-28, so that means Erica came out and hit all 3 11s. Christy and Sarah tied with 32. Samantha over Paige, 33-31, and we were watching Samantha on screen there, and she looked very smooth. Sharon Carpenter up by 1 over Emily McCarthy in the Women's Open Pro after the first end. In the Men's Open Pro, well, go ahead and let's see what we got for the recurve,
Yeah, let's hit
guys.
the men's recurve. So Brady Ellison is currently leading his teammate and fellow Olympic medalist Jake Kaminsky 31-30. That's going to be a really tough match, and hopefully we'll get to see a little bit of that because that is some world-class Olympic shooting right there. Joe McGlynn up over Zach Garrett. Joe McGlynn at 29-26, and
That's
Joe
an
is a
upset.
very strong indoor shooter, and Joe, like Tom Stanwood, he's one of those dark horse archers that just comes out and lays it down periodically, and you got to watch out when Joe's shooting hot. Colin Klimacek up 32-30 over Glenn Thomas. We see that Thomas obviously pushed Jason Pfister out, which is a surprise for this competition because he was shooting very hot this weekend. And Mikkel Plummer, 29-29 against Crispin Duenas, the 3-time Olympian. This is a big event for Mikkel. He's doing really well.
Looking over at the men's Open Pro division after one end, Logan Wild over Lewis Holmes by 1 point, 32-31. Sam and Jesse are tied at 33 apiece. Shane Wills up by 1 over Kelsey, 32-31. Paul Tedford, Dan McCarthy also tied 32 apiece. Jacob Marlowe up by 1 over Dustin Bounce, 32-31. Braden shot a 33. He's up over Chris Schaff, 33-32. Dave Cousins with a 1 point lead over Chance Bobeff, 33-32. And Ted Strakalski, young man, is down by 3 against world champion from the Netherlands, Mike Schlosser.
And here we've got Dan McCarthy shooting his last arrow, and again, the bow barely moving. Dan is amazing, and he lets it down. Apparently not steady enough. Meanwhile, here's Crispin Duenas. Let's see how he's doing on the recurve side. Boom, strong shot, and he's walking off the line just as the arrow's out of the bow. Now we've got Dan drawing back again. Let's see if he can get to that nice steady hold that we saw a couple shots ago when we weren't entirely sure that the camera hadn't frozen. And here comes Dan again, pretty rock solid.
You can see his finger curl ever so slightly. See that?
But
And that's the stuff I watch on film. See that just ever so slightly. He's curling that finger.
And let's just talk about what that's really driven by, because he's maintaining tension.
You can tell.
On
He's
his
not
back.
happy with that shot.
No. And so Dan, when you see that finger curl, Chuck, I think it'd be helpful for the folks at home to know a little bit about what's activating that shot, because he's not just jerking his fingers to get that shot off.
That's that slow squeeze, and there's many different ways to get a release to trigger like that. You can squeeze the hand, you can roll the hand, you can push with the thumb, you can rotate the elbow. There's many, many, many different ways to get that to go off, and you can see Dan was applying some pressure. He was trying to get that nice, smooth squeeze through his method of trying to get that shot to break.
We just have the camera right now. It looks like we've got Logan Wild over here, and he's looking really nice and steady today. Of course, brother Rio eliminated a little bit earlier, and I think Dad D is still in the game, and we'll shoot a little bit later. But right now, let's look at Brady Ellison and Jake Kaminsky. So over on, we've got right now the men's recurve field. So you've got Glenn Thomas, Colin Klimacek from the left. Then next one in, Jake Kaminsky in the blue win and win shirt and Brady in the Hoyt jersey. And you have got 2 of the best Olympic recurve shooters in the world right now shooting against each other. Neither one thrilled with their shot. Shake of the head from Jake, who is never shy about letting you know when he is not happy with his shot.
I'm surprised to see Jake shooting the small diameter arrows here this weekend as well, because Jake was one of the guys who got early into the game.
Correct.
Of shooting the larger arrows, and Brady was one of the latecomers to the game. He just switched to the 23s for Neem last week, and he had there was a big long interview how he could never get them to hit the same point of impact. He was shooting roughly the same scores, but he couldn't get the same point of impact with that larger diameter. And I see he finally switched, and he's shooting them again today.
Absolutely.
And it's gone the other way. Jake is now shooting the smaller arrow again.
Well,
I think that's because he just switched to the win and win. He doesn't have the time behind it.
Well, so he was just setting his bow up a couple of days ago, setting up his new limbs and doing a Facebook Live, showing him setting up his new limbs and doing limb alignment on them. I think one of the things, too, that you find, especially with the recurve, because the holding weight is higher, but the overall draw weight is frequently lower than what you'd initially pull with a compound. And so especially for somebody like Brady or Jake, they're not particularly tall guys. They have long draw lengths because they have great upper body alignment. Their shoulders are real stretched out, but they're still not necessarily getting, it's not like a Steve Anderson who's 6 foot
right,
5
exactly.
or something, yeah. and probably pulling the bow back 31 and a half inches. So for Jake and Brady, the tuning game is a little tough on the recurve side. I mean, first of all, recurve bows notoriously finicky to tune. I mean, yes, we say obviously today's great bows tune right out of the box, but we're for 99.9% of shooters, they're going to get a bow set up and tuned with no problem. But for these folks, you're talking about Olympic medalists here. They are the best of the best in the world. And when you talk about splitting hairs in recurve archery, Jake and Brady are 2 examples of somebody who want every last point. And so if you can't get those indoor arrows to tune, when I say indoor arrows, I mean large diameter aluminum shafts, you're going to go with your knitting needles and hope that they hit.
Yeah, because they're comfortable, and those guys will shoot almost the same exact score.
Absolutely.
Looking at the senior division, I kind of wanted to get an update and see how we were doing here with the men's senior. Benton Christensen leading Mike Leiter 65-64. Tony Taza, now we're waiting for Darren Collins' scores to come in, so I don't want to comment on that quite yet. Same with Billy Hicks over Todd Schultz. Those guys only had a point separating them after the first end. We're waiting for the electronic scoring to update. Dwayne Price had a 2-point lead over Loxley Hutchins after the end of after one end, and they're down there doing the scoring right now. So that stuff will be rolling right in, literally momentarily, and we'll have an update. Of course, Dwayne's done very, very well here in the past. I think he's very excited and wanting to, like, literally win every event he goes to.
Yeah. And we've got an update here on the recurve men's side. So 2 ends in, Brady Ellison with a big lead over Jake Kaminsky. Brady laid down a 33 last end, and that helped him because Jake posted a 28. And so Brady now 64-58 over Jake. Jake will have his work cut out for him in these last 2 ends.
That's a 6-point lead to get over.
That's a big deal when you're shooting at that level. Joe McGlynn, Zach Garrett narrowed the gap a little bit on this last end. He picked up a point, and so it's 59-57 in Joe's favor. And we've got Colin Klimacek leading Glenn Thomas by 3 at 61-58. And, of course, Crispin Duenas maintaining a lead now over Mikkel Plummer, 59-57, but not a big gap. And I'll tell you what,
it's only a couple of points.
This is a big event for Mikkel, and to see him shooting that well against somebody so formidable as Crispin Duenas is a big deal. So we're going to see who advances here into our semifinal matches, but this is a really exciting bracket.
Looking over at the men's open pro side, you've got Lewis Holmes leading Logan Wild only by a point, but it is that slight lead going into the third end. Jesse Broadwater has turned it around. He shot 33s back-to-back there. So a 2-point lead over Sam. Shane Wills up by 3 over Kelsey. Paul Tedford up by 2 over Dan McCarthy. And we saw that on screen with Dan popping that last arrow where he didn't look very, very happy at all. Jacob Marlowe, I can't call that match. I'm waiting for the final score to roll in on that one. Right now, Jacob is sitting at 65. Braden Galantine is 66-64 over Chris Schaff. He shot a 33 that end as well. Dave Cousins and Chance Bobeff are tied. They both shot a 32 and a 33, so they're sitting at 65 apiece. Mike Slosher up by 3 over young Ted. And going into the women, why don't we take a look at what the women pros are doing
So
here.
we've got Erica Jones with a commanding lead over Madison Rutkowski, 65-59. Again, now you're starting to get into the third end of 4. That's going to be a tough deficit to overcome. Christy Collin up by a point over Sarah Sonicson, and again, this is also a big deal. Here's Christy back from a fairly long absence. I think she's took some time out to really focus on being a mom and spend some time with her family.
Yep.
And so Christy's really coming back to the circuit right now, alongside Erica. And Christy is leading Sarah, who's, I believe, world number 3 or 4 right now. You've got Samantha Brenzel, who's up 65-64 against Paige Gore. Really tough competitors.
I think that's going to be an upset.
That is going to be an upset. I think this is going to be a really tough match because you've got 2 incredibly talented ladies here who are fierce competitors. I think this is going to be an interesting match, but Samantha Brenzel so far just shooting her way right through this bracket, and it looks like Paige may challenge her a little bit. And then Sharon Carpenter, 3D standout against fellow 3D standout Emily McCarthy, leading her by 2 points, 63-61. This is very, very interesting. We got some really tight matches.
I think that's going to be an upset too.
Yeah.
And no slight to Sharon and no slight to Paige, who are both, doing well. But Samantha, she's a prior winner here. Paige, a world full-time. Paige is a full-time archer. Samantha has a full-time day job.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and Paige just made a switch this year. Emily, she's been shooting really, really well. She's an incredible, you can count on her to be on the podium almost anywhere she goes. Same with Sharon. I've seen her in several shoot-offs and the ASA tour. I mean, they're both really, really, really tough.
We've got the men's, it looks like this is the men's master division or senior division.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got Mike Leiter there, who looks like he is drilling it. That looked like a strong and confident shot. And we've got some tough competitors in this division. And again, what you start to see a lot in the Masters Open Pro division is you start to see archers who are just really, have been strong all their lives, and now they're just moving into the next division. And so you almost just, it's not like you move into this next division and it gets easy, because everybody in that same age bracket is moving right up with you and pushing you.
Here's a great shot of Madison
and Erica Jones on the right. And you can see here what we were talking about earlier, which is Erica holds like a rock. Watch this girl shoot. And Madison is no joke either. She's a younger girl. She's a younger competitor. She's coming up, and she's strong to be in this bracket. She didn't look happy about that.
Did you see the shake of the head
got
there?
The shake of the head but that is an absolute trademark
Beautiful
with
follow
Erica.
through there.
Yeah, Erica is never one to give up points. Here we've got Paige Gore on the right side, and she is looking strong. She always tends to execute a very strong shot. But again, Erica, for the most part, holding like a rock. Her elbow came a little forward there. Not sure quite what happened. But Erica is typically very, very strong.
I think that has to do with how she anchors with her hand. If you watch her from the side, you can see the way she puts her fingers together on the release.
Correct. Yep. Mm-hmm.
That was one of those things I studied in the film to see how she gets her release to pop off.
Such a talented archer, and again, just such a privilege for all the spectators who are here. I mean, we've got quite a few spectators standing behind the archers' chairs right now that we can see, and it's such a privilege, I think, for especially even the folks at home to just see this level of world-class competition.
That's one of the things I like about competitive archery is you can actually come to the line and you can rub shoulders with the best of the best in the world, not just in your hometown or your home state or your home country. There's international people here that are making their living shooting arrows, and you're shooting with them.
And one of them, we just saw one of them, Sarah Soniksen from Denmark, who is just such a standout archer. And so friendly. We stopped and chatted with her for a minute yesterday, and just perfectly happy to stop and talk. Here's Emily McCarthy and Sharon Carpenter, and these ladies, again, just could rival any one of the guys on any given day. Speaking of which, Chuck, we know that the Vegas shoot is coming up, and Sarah Lopez, who is the world #1, in fact, the archer to hold the world #1 ranking for the longest period of time in history, I think it's something like 39 months or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got Sarah Lopez, and she will be shooting in the Open. Is it the Open Pro division she's shooting
We call it the Open division now. We used to call it the men's pro or men's open division, and we changed it to just the open division. And the idea there, now the women always could have shot in that division, but they didn't. So the people that run that organization for the Vegas shoot, there was a lot of conversation about trying to be more inclusive and encourage women to step up and shoot for the big money. And
excellent.
She's the first one to do it.
So
and she's got a shot.
Here's Christy Collin.
Great shot of Christy Collin there.
Super steady, looking great.
Release kind of came out to the side there.
And, it's amazing to see for her and Erica Jones fairly long absences for both of these archers, and to see them coming back looking so steady is really great.
Mm-hmm. Darren Collins here. I've shot with him before on the line in Louisville. Great guy. Oh, he didn't look happy about that at all.
No,
I wonder
that
if he
was
lost
the
one
sad
out the
face.
bottom. Yeah, you could hear that. That's a pretty tight match, too. Darren didn't have any points to give up, so he may have given up a couple of points there. Tony had a 4-point lead on him going into that match. Benton Christian, has a point over Mike Leiter going into this third end. Todd Schultz is leading Billy Hicks by a point going up to the scoring table now. Dwayne Price was up by 2 going into this into this third scoring end. So as we see the scores start to roll in, as these guys get up there and take a look at stuff.
We've also got scores right now, so we're waiting to see what gets posted from this last end. But going into this last end, for the Youth Open Male Division, Trevor Silverson was leading Jacob Slusar's 66-63.
Emily's got a big miss there.
Oh, yes.
She doesn't look happy at all. You could see it. Paige looks like she had a great end. Paige is the one on the left-hand side there. Just out of the quick camera angle, looks like 311s. Samantha looks like she's probably got at least 2 11s and a 10. Emily over there on the far right, maybe 1, 11, and a 10, and that bottom one, from our camera angle, it's tough to call. You can't decide whether it's in or out.
Over here, we've got the Masters
senior.
Open Pro. And it looks like Benton Christensen.
310s, I would call that. Tony Taza looks like he's got 311s. That's a solid end.
Very
Mike
strong.
Leiter would be that third group in. Didn't get a chance to take a look at that. Let's see if the scores have updated here, and we'll give you guys a quick update. Again, we are here at the Lancaster Archery Classic 2017. We are at the Spooky Nook Sports Complex just outside of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. An amazing location. If you're in this area and you have a need for sports, you definitely want to check out Spooky Nook. This is Chuck Cooley coming to you live along with Teresa Johnson. And we're going through I think this is the final elimination for the day here. And we'll be wrapping this up shortly. This is the live streaming results brought to you by Dead Center Archery Products.
And let's come back to those Youth Open male scores. Now that we have those updated, we can give you some more up-to-date results. So we've got Anthony Ferraro 99-93 right now, leading Alec Meyer. Again, that's going to be a tough deficit to overcome. Michael Hurlbert over 98-97 versus Carson Sapp. That's a very, very tight match, and Carson has some room to move there, so we'll have to see how that comes out. Again, another tight match. Eli Hughes and Tyler Heritage. Eli up by 1 point, 95-94.
That match between Michael and Carson on target 35, that'll definitely be one to watch. Again, Carson just coming back from France. Carson is a national champion, did very well in Vegas.
We see him right there on the camera.
Yep, that's Carson with the long hair there and just the smile and the taking a drink. So that'll be a great match to keep up with those guys.
And there is still some room to move in the other match, and there's one remaining match in this division, which is Trevor Silverson, Jacob Slusars, 99-96 for Trevor. You know, Jacob still has some room to fight back in this last end. It's not a big deficit.
Running through some of the men's senior pro scores, Benton Christensen up by 2 over Mike Leiter. Tony Taza, yep, we could call that over Darren. You could see that on Darren's face when he let that last arrow go. 98-92, that's probably going to end exactly the way you read it. Billy Hicks only up by a point over Todd Schultz, and Dwayne Price up by 3 going into the last land against Loxley Hutchins. So likely Darren will advance on his round as well, unless something tragic happens here.
Let's bring you up to speed real quick on the Women's Open Pro. So despite that we saw Erica Jones make what looked like a little bit of a grimace after one of her arrows on the last end, she still delivered a 33. Amazingly, her opponent did too. Madison is shooting really, really strong in this match versus Erica. She's got a tough competitor on her hands, but Erica still leads by 6 points going into this last end. By no means is that a final decision, but Madison would certainly have to work very, very hard to overcome Erica at this point, who's got a 6 point lead.
She came out tough with that 28 that killed her. After that, she's been right on pace.
Absolutely.
With Erica. That first end really hammered her there.
Christie is maintaining a lead over Sarah Sonicson right now, 96-95. This is really strong shooting from Christie after a fairly long absence, and this is really exciting to see. And it speaks to the fact that Erica and Christie have both, not sure the degree to which they're committed to shooting all the events this year, but it certainly speaks to their ability to come back after a long absence and come out of the gate real strong.
I talked to Chrissy at the ATA show here a few weeks ago, and she was super excited to be out on the road again.
Yeah.
I think her fire is relit, and I think we're going to see some big things out of her this year.
We'll take a look here at Samantha Brenzel and Paige Gore. These ladies are tied at 97 all, and this is a tough match. I think this is going to be the one to watch on this side of the field because Sharon Carpenter is now, after that last end, Emily McCarthy seemed to struggle a little bit. She dropped a couple points. Well, Sharon Carpenter now has a 5-point lead in this last end, 96-91. But Paige Gore and Samantha Brenzel tied at 97. It's going to be a very interesting match. Both of these ladies, true professionals, really, really strong shooters. It's going to be interesting to see who emerges from that match. There we see Carson Sapp, really steady. Carson, I want to give a shout out to Carson's coach, who is George Riles, out of Archery Learning Center what a great guy. I mean, can't say enough nice things about
man.
about George Riles.
Yeah, his coaching credentials and the awards and the students that he's put through and how well those kids have done worldwide and across the country it's just a testament to what his commitment to the sport and to the game is.
Absolutely.
In fact, he's normally here at this event. I've never not seen him here, and he's at home now getting ready for a national event at his home shop.
Correct, and that program has really grown by leaps and bounds. It's been so wonderful to see the progress that he makes with those kids, and not just that, but the passion that he brings on social media to talking about his love of coaching and his love of those kids. Truly a wonderful coach and a class act, always willing to help everybody, and it truly shows in his coaching and the way those kids turn out.
Yeah, it really does. I'm going to go back and I'm going to touch on some of these men's pro matches here. One of the hot ones, there's going to be a tie going into this scoring end between Logan and Lewis. Jesse Broadwater is up by 2 on Sam. Shane is up by 5 on Kelsey. Paul Tedford up by 2 on Dan. That's going to be it's upsetting to see Dan get knocked out, but I think that's going to be the way that goes. But Paul has been absolutely on fire. He's been shooting so well for so long. Jacob Marlowe up by 2 over Dustin. Braden up by 2 over Chris. Chance and Dave are tied, so it's going to be really interesting to see what happened here on this scoring end, to see if they're still tied. That could be a shoot-off match there on the men's Open Pro. And we could have a shoot-off here for the women, too, so that would be quite exciting going into this last bracket. So everybody's kind of up to the target butts now, and you'll start seeing the scoring roll in. If you want to see live scoring, you can go to archers.com. That's RCHERZ.com, archers.com. And all the live scoring is right there for the Lancaster Classic 2017, taking place here at Spooky Nook Sports Complex just outside of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And it'll give you all the brackets and all the rundown for tomorrow as well. Of course, Teresa and I will be back here doing this again, announcing all the medal matches. Now, tomorrow's medal matches will be a different setup. We won't have them out on the main floor here. We actually have a beautiful staging system that they set up behind us. It'll be that darkened room kind of theory where everything is highlighted. The archers are highlighted by spotlights. The targets are highlighted by spotlights. It's really an incredible event. If you've never watched one of those, I encourage you guys to tune in tomorrow to the Lancaster broadcast through all their YouTube channels. Those will start at 1 o'clock Saturday. Today.
We tend to lose. So there's archery time, and then there's like everyday time.
Real time.
And when you're at an archery tournament, I think we all tend to lose.
Teresa's pointing at her watch going, today is Saturday.
So
that's right. Yeah, we have some of the finals that we're going to do
So
today.
we're going to start the shoot-up finals at 1 o'clock this afternoon. So do not go away, because after we wrap this up, we're going to be coming right back to you at 1 o'clock. So you have time to go make a quick grilled cheese, get a little pizza or something.
Apparently, I need to go get a coffee.
Maybe.
I forgot today was Saturday.
But anyway, so back at 1 o'clock this afternoon. So let's just give you a quick rundown. So we're going to lead off with the Youth Recurve Female Division, followed by Youth Recurve Male, then Barebow Recurve, Youth Open Female, Women's Open, Bow Hunter, Senior Open, and Masters Open. All today, the shoot-up finals. We're going to put those archers under a lot of pressure in our finals venue, not because we want to put them under pressure, but because we want to produce a really high-quality finals for you and for the spectators here, and you guys are going to get to watch it all live with commentary from Chuck and me. And then tomorrow, starting at 8 a.m., we have all pro divisions and the top recurve divisions as well.
Right.
And we got the broadcast schedule right here for you guys, and we are so excited to bring you these finals starting this afternoon at 1 o'clock.
I think it's going to be a really great afternoon. It's the staging system, like I say over here, that they've got set up behind us is really fantastic. It reminds me of the European style tournaments that they do on TV.
Yeah, they did a really beautiful job.
The crew here that Rob brings in to run this this whole shoot, and all the professional cameramen and professional photographers, all the people that walked around with you yesterday doing all the interviews is really a great great thing for all of us.
And so we've got some results coming in that we want to share with you guys, and one of them is that we are going to have it won't be a shoot-off because Paige Gore did drop a point, so we finished with a tied score between Samantha Brenzel and Paige Gore at 129 all. But if I'm not mistaken, Chuck, Paige dropped the first point in that match, which means...
Well, I think actually they shoot this off because we saw this in the saw this in the last bracket when Jesse had to do the shoot-off.
Okay, so this will be a shoot-off.
Yep, I think it's a tied score, so they're going to go to a shoot-off. Now, in the men's pro division, we didn't have any of those ties that we kind of expected. Logan Wild will move on. Jesse Broadwater will move on against Sam. Shane Wills will move on. He beat Kelsey by 5. Dan McCarthy, who I'm stunned to see that Paul shot a 29 on his last end. Dan McCarthy will be moving on. He shot back-to-back 33s to pull himself back into this match. So Dan McCarthy's going to be moving on. Jacob Marlowe also will move on. Braden Galantine will move on. Chance Bobeth will move on. He defeated Dave Cousins by 2. And Mike Slosher will move on. He shot a 132 against a 129 that Ted Strokowski shot.
So over here are the other matches remaining in the Women's Open Pro. Erica Jones over Madison Rakowski, who put up a great fight. You know, Madison's last 2 ends, 33-32, but was not enough to overcome Erica, who dropped, it looks like 1 point. So the scores, it looks like Erica dropped only 1 point, 33-32, 33-33. What a match for Erica Jones here at Lancaster Archery. I mean, she just absolutely killed it.
She was on fire.
Christy Collin, unfortunately out to Sarah Sonicson. Christy dropped a couple points in that last one, 29 to Sarah's 33. That puts Sarah into the semifinals, 128-125. Again, we said Samantha Brenzel and Paige Gore should shoot off, and Sharon Carpenter passed Emily McCarthy. Emily shot so well on that last end, 33 points on the board, a perfect score for those last 3 arrows, but it was not enough to overcome. Excellent shooting by Sharon, 32-31, 33-31 for the match win.
Yeah, those 2 30s in the middle of Emily's match, they
hurt her.
Yeah, they hurt her bad. Going over to the senior or the Masters Open Pro division, Benton Christensen will be moving on. He defeated Mike Leiter by 1. Tony Taza will also be moving on. He defeated Darren Collins, who had a really rough first end, only clipping out a 39. Billy Hicks will move on, 130. He shot over a 126 over Todd Schultz. And Dwayne Price, as expected, will be moving on to his final match. He shot 33, 33, 33, and a 31 to close out his match. So he'll be moving on as well.
Let's talk really quickly about the men's recurve, because we have a decision there that's pretty amazing. So Brady Ellison advancing past Jake Kaminsky, 129 to 116.
That's a big match. And look what Brady shot. He shot a 31, a 33, a 33, and a 32. Those are compound scores.
Yeah, Brady is just, and so for those of you who may not have seen, last weekend Brady shot a new world record indoors, 599 out of a possible 600 at a world archery event. Near perfect, and he broke his own world record doing it. We had a great interview with Brady yesterday. If you're able to go back and watch our coverage from here at the Lancaster Classic, check out our interview with Brady Ellison, where he talks about what that last arrow was like, what's going through your mind. He said he tried to convince himself that it was, he was only breaking his own record, and he'd already had the record, and he didn't need to try that hard, but he said that last arrow was a little bit of pressure. It wasn't inside out, but it was enough to get the 599 and get him a new world record. And Chuck, I have to tell you, I think that's a new world record, 599 indoors. That's going to stand for a long time.
We thought that when he shot the 598 too, and that held for a month?
Yeah, absolutely. Now here you go. We get to the remaining matches here in the men's recurve division. Let's talk about those. Joe McGlynn tied Zach Garrett 118 all, and it looks like Joe McGlynn and Zach Garrett will shoot off. Glenn Thomas pushes out Colin Klimacek. This is an upset for sure. Colin, 5th in the U.S. Olympic team trials, just a tremendously strong shooter, lots of international World Cup experience, And Colin is out 117 to 119 to Glenn Thomas, who moves on to the finals here at the Lancaster Classic. Big deal from Glenn Thomas. Mikel Plummer ties Crispin Duenas 117 all. Those two will shoot off as well. So we get some shoot-offs about to happen, starting with Paige Gore and Samantha Brenzel, and here Joe McGlynn and Zach Garrett.
You could see the look of seriousness on Samantha's face. She wants it again. I think she's fired up as well. Her new bow is performing very, very well. She's put a lot of time, a lot of effort in. You can see her there on the left-hand side of your screen. Paige looking a little disappointed, I think, that she's stuck in this position. Now, I shot with Paige. The last time I shot with Paige was the Outdoor Nationals in Yankton. She actually shot the highest score on the entire field against all competitors. Absolutely on fire.
And here we get to watch these ladies shoot. Now, one difference I'd love to point out is in the equipment that they use. So Paige, if you notice, uses a wrist strap release, whereas Samantha's release is handheld. Paige is triggering her release with her index finger, whereas Samantha is triggering hers with, I think, a bit of thumb pressure and back tension. Both ladies in unison out with the binoculars to see where that arrow went.
Yeah, this is in that shoot-off position. It's, it's one arrow for highest score.
Here we got Zach Garrett and Joe McGlynn, and these two archers are still on the line, so it looks like there's another arrow left to shoot, and the question is, who has that arrow left to shoot? Is it both of them or just one of them?
Please score.
It looks like they are both going to be shooting again.
Neither man given an inch. They're not going to move a bit. Zach.
So Zach is so fierce, Chuck. He's a really fun person to talk to. Always a real pleasure to interview him. Let's just see. I think Paige Gore took that one.
I think Paige will win that one. If you look at the way the judge is pointing, he's got his hand towards Paige's target. That'll be a win.
Yeah, we got a handshake for Garrett and McGlynn as well. And
but
Joe,
they didn't want to leave the line until the judge called that. They weren't gonna move an inch.
Hard to tell who took that one because they're both smiling. So we have to see if we can get a look at that target or get a determination on McGlynn and Garrett.
Both of those guys normally so happy that it is kind of hard to read them.
There's a bit of a poker face there, so it's a little hard for us to tell.
Okay, officials back.
Little fist bump there from Zach.
Shooting line, please.
And we're just waiting for the final call from the officials downrange to post that. Little handshake there. So
Zach wins it. We're being told Zach Garrett gets the win. But man, what a day for Joe McGlynn. He fought his way through, did a beautiful job, and such a good competitor.
Joe runs a great program in downstate New York.
Pro-line archery, I think.
We have a tie.
And then Larry's calling out a tie.
Second arrow.
So there will be a second arrow.
Let's see who's going to shoot this.
So if you look at the updated score on archers.com, when we look at Paige's score versus Samantha, you'll see that it says 129 apiece, and then right under their score, there's an 11 for Paige and a 9 for Samantha. That's why she looks so unhappy. In that shoot-off, she shot a 9, and that's how that'll transfer. So Paige will transfer in the Women's Open Pro.
We had a letdown here on our other match, and I think that might be the Men's Open division.
Really high draw there.
Really high draw. Let's see if this gentleman can pull it off. There he is. He gets the shot off.
Shot looked good. Great follow-through.
There's a little bit of a scowl there, so we'll have to see what that means.
Kind of hard to read with some of those guys as she trucks down to take a look at the official score.
The reality is, Chuck, especially when you start to talk about the pro classes and the really elite level shooters, there's a lot of scowling. I mean, they're just, you see a perfect 10 down there that the rest of us would love to have, but
well, that's because you kind of got away with one.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what that is. I did that a lot on my qualifying round. If you watched me, there was a couple of times I shook my own head, and I looked down there, and by God, my arrow was still in the 10, and I thought, there's just no way. Well, and that's the difference between a lucky landing and a good shot, right? Yeah, it was a marginal shot, and I just got really lucky. I've been working on follow through and things like that to try to, hold the bow arm up and wait till the arrow hits the target. I think there's a lot to that now. I've been watching the way that George teaches his kids, and you watch some of the follow through with the way their hand breaks off the back of their face, and the arm just goes straight back and the bow goes straight towards the target. There's a lot to that. I've been kind of paying attention to it, and I've been getting away with some shots lately. So I think that's one of the things you see. You could see that the guy shooting the elite shirt, the way his hand rolls straight back when the arrow breaks. That's an example of that good follow through.
And good follow-through is such an important piece of shooting, in regardless of whether you shoot compound, recurve, or traditional. And I'd even argue, even more so for recurve, because the arrow is not getting out of the bow as quickly. And so you don't necessarily have the speed that up, if you have the little anticipation with a recurve and you move just a little too soon, or you fail to follow through, you let, drop your bow arm too quickly or lose your back tension too quickly, you could be in some real trouble with the recurve, because potentially that arrow is still getting out of the bow, because let's face it, recurve bows are quite
they're a little
significantly slower than the compounds.
Yep. So I'd like to see actually who this is shooting off. Now look, see, this is a great shot of the judge actually breaking out a ruler, because this is the third arrow of the shoot off.
And this is Sue Ludwig down there.
She's got a scale, and she's measuring to see what arrow is closest to center. And she gives it to the shooter on the right.
And she's a very experienced judge, Sue. Her husband, Doug.
2 millimeters. Did you see that there?
She gave 2
millimeters.
So we know, again, as Chuck said earlier, Rob and Carol, really go all out with the shoot to make sure that the shooters have a world-class experience. They have the best of the best here judging, many of the best judges in the country who are really familiar with the rules, and things just go smoothly at this tournament.
You see the big sigh of relief there.
And that was the gentleman with the scowl on the last shot. So it just goes to show that facial expression doesn't tell us everything.
So that's Ethan King, and he shot a 32, 32, 32, 33 against Cody Seitz, who literally shot the same score in the same order, 32,
nice.
32, 32. They had a tie of 129 going in.
What a match for these gentlemen, and you just saw a sigh of relief for King. He literally just exhaled through his mouth, and you could see a visible relief that he is through to the next round.
Right. Now those guys, to give you a sense of where the competition stands with these guys, these are the men they're just shooting men's open. These are not professionals. These are not guys who go out and do this for a living or on the tour, and they are shooting scores every bit as good or almost as good as the pro men. And then you wind up with a great shoot-off like this, and 2 great competitors moving on. Great scores. Great scores. Great shooting
by these guys. Great shooting by everybody this morning. So much excitement here. We've been watching the adults for the last few minutes, but we saw so much great shooting by the youth shooters. And actually, the Lancaster Academy JOAD Club has 30 kids shooting here at the Classic this weekend, including Casey Koffold, who we see is going to be in the adult women's finals, which is amazing. Connor Koffold, who has advanced to the youth male recurve finals, and TJ Strachalski in the men's open pro. So we've really seen just a very strong youth presence here. We saw clubs from New York, clubs from New England. We're seeing clubs from all over the country. We saw clubs from Georgia, clubs from everywhere, just kids coming out here to have fun. Again, this is not the same high pressure that you see for these elite shooters. The kids are out here to have a great time, rub shoulders, as you say, with the best pros in the world, and learn about their game, and they're doing a beautiful job of it. So many smiles out here on the range yesterday as all these kids were flinging arrows, and it was a wonderful thing to see.
It was actually a lot of fun. It was a great day yesterday. I was glad I shot my round early. Normally I'm not the guy that gets out of bed and wants to be on the line shooting for score at 8 a.m. But I was actually really glad that I did that, because it gave me the whole day to relax and interact with all the other vendors and a lot of the shooters, and kind of walk around and see what you guys were doing. And with this facility and the way they've got it laid out, it's just really shooter friendly. I think it was a great way to pull this off.
And while we're at it, Chuck, just want to give quick props to the folks who are running the cameras today. In addition to Lancaster Archery Supply's own staff, popular hunting show Bowhunter Die provided camera operators for qualification and today's elimination broadcast. And then camerawoman Alexia Martinez, she's a freelance camera operator who has traveled the world with World Archery. She has been filming the sport for the past 5 years. Lexi and I actually worked together at a World Cup in Ogden, Utah back in 2012 when she was an archery fan reporter 5 years ago, and that was her first archery event. And it's been wonderful to see her get her start in the sport, and now she is a professional camera operator, does a beautiful job. And you can see more of her work on YouTube at Lexi Martinez Media. But these camera operators, you know, they don't get the praise and the credit. They just keep us tuned in all day long, but we are certainly grateful. Also, the sponsors of Lancaster Classic, you can see the banners being shown throughout the venue, throughout our broadcast, but we're so grateful to those sponsors who have helped to promote and support this event.
Yeah, make sure you stay tuned in with to Lancaster Archery. You can find all of their information on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. If you're going to be hashtagging them or using social media, it's hashtag LAS Classic. And if you're here inside the True Ball XL Archery Hall, you can apply the Lancaster Archery Geo Filter when sharing your classic images with your friends, and all social media stuff will pick up on that. This Hoyt Live video feed can be found on lancasterarchery.com or through youtube.com/LAN Archery. We're going to be doing another broadcast later on this afternoon.
1 o'clock today, we're going to be joining you again, and we're really excited to come back to you this afternoon with our Shoot Up Finals broadcast, which is very, very exciting. So we're looking forward to that this afternoon at 1 o'clock.
Great. I think this was a fantastic morning. Thanks very much for getting up early to meet us down here.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
We're looking forward to bringing you guys the Shoot Up Finals a little bit later on this afternoon. Again, I'm Chuck Cooley.
I'm Teresa Johnson.
And we're here at the 2017 Lancaster Archery Classic at the True Ball Archery XL Archery Hall, which is the Spooky Nook Sports Complex and facility just outside of Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
And we'll see you folks at 1 o'clock.